If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 151, Kishin Press Conference and Reveal to the World. Gradually, Tora and Suzuki were consistently releasing high-quality video games with stunning graphics, and they appeared to have seized the opportunity to exploit Kishin's weaknesses, even though Kishin might have superior gameplay. However, Tora and Suzuki's video game graphics were overpowering. In the Minato, Roppongi district, at Tora headquarters, a conference was in progress. President Taro Ikeda, accompanied by numerous executives, was lauding the group of Yakuza programmers for their exceptional work, all sporting joyous smiles. "We're steadily expanding our presence in both the domestic and international markets. If this trend continues, Kishin won't stand a chance," President Taro Ikeda declared with a grin. The executives chuckled in agreement, with one of them adding, "I concur." If Kishin had refrained from launching their own 16-bit system, they would have been a short-lived company. President Taro Ikeda and the executives nodded in agreement, and another executive chimed in, "Are you kidding me? Do you really think Kishin can develop their own 16-bit system when they lack the research capabilities we possess? It's safe to say that Kishin's luck has run out." Another executive concurred, "That's a valid point. Even though they excel at creating innovative video games with exceptional gameplay, and they were the pioneers of industry revival, it doesn't guarantee a perpetual winning streak." President Taro Ikeda joined the nodding executives, remarking, "I concur, it seems Kishin's luck has indeed run its course." The executives nodded in unison as one of them exclaimed, "Now that they're out of the picture, Suzuki is the only remaining competitor in the video game industry." Meanwhile, at the Suzuki Electronics headquarters, a similar conversation was unfolding in a conference room. Nico Tabata, along with the executives and the addition of Shiko and Seiki, shared a laugh as they observed Kishin's declining estimated sales. Nico Tabata then remarked with satisfaction, "I suppose Kishin has done well for themselves. They've already earned a substantial amount." The executives nodded in agreement, and Shiko added with a chuckle, "My little brother should be content. After all, he has the popular Pokémon franchise and Lego." Seiki also nodded, and with a hint of playful teasing, he remarked, "It's not a bad deal for him. At least he can make some money." He paused and continued mockingly, "We're being quite considerate, allowing him his moment in the video game industry." Shiko chuckled at that. While Nico Tabata and the executives shared a muted chuckle, they were fully aware that Kishin was owned by the youngest son of the Suzuki Group chairman, Shiro Suzuki. In Chairman Shiro Suzuki's office, he contacted his youngest son, Shinro, recognizing that his venture in the video game industry was losing its edge. As Ctto, his brother, entered the office and took a seat on the sofa, he remarked, "It seems your youngest son's business isn't thriving anymore." Chairman Shiro Suzuki remained silent, fixing his gaze directly on Vice Chairman Ctto Suzuki. Ctto Suzuki chuckled and continued, "Sooner or later, your youngest son will regret turning down our father's offer for his company." Shiro Suzuki maintained his silence. Meanwhile, amidst the various rumors and speculations surrounding Kishin's apparent struggles, on January 28, 1992, Kishin announced a press conference scheduled for February 2, 1992, at the Keidanren Kaikan. This announcement ignited discussions across Japan, particularly within the video game community. Could this be what we're thinking? A 30-year-old video game enthusiast asked his friend with anticipation as they watched the news on TV, hoping for a 16-bit console from Kishin Electronics. His friend chuckled wryly and remarked, "Hee hee, dream on. Kishin has already been losing its footing." Another person chimed in, saying, "Let's wait and see. I have my doubts, though." And yet another exclaimed, "We'll catch the press conference on TV, so patience is the key." Everyone nodded in agreement. Conversations like these were unfolding across Japan and even in parts of Asia, such as South Korea and Taiwan. People eagerly awaited the Kishin press conference scheduled for February 2, 1992. As the days passed, on February 2, 1992, at the Japan Business Federation building, Keidanren Kaiken, the Kishin Electronics press conference finally took place. Numerous Japanese media outlets were already gathered, alongside many foreign media outlets, with most of them coming from the USA, and some from various parts of Asia. This highlighted the current influence and reputation of Kishin, as even international media were willing to travel to Japan to cover the event. The venue was bustling, with several small electronic businesses promoting their products in various sections of the building, while figures from the business world were in attendance at Keidanren Kaiken. Figures like Asahi Tanaka, Kenji Tanaka, Taro Ikeda, Shiro Suzuki, along with his two sons Shiko and Seiki, and the CEO of Suzuki Electronics, Nico Tabata, were present among the attendees. The anticipation grew as the countdown for the start of the Kishin press conference continued. Shiko and Seiki exchanged curious glances, wondering what their younger brother, Shinro, had up his sleeve. Then, the countdown signaled the beginning of the Kishin press conference. As the crowd hushed in anticipation of Kishin's announcement, a young man dressed in an expensive black suit stepped onto the stage. With the exception of Asahi Tanaka, Kenji Tanaka, and those affiliated with the Suzuki Group, many people were taken by surprise. They were completely unaware of who this young man was. Cameras continuously flashed toward the young man, and television screens provided a closer look at his face. The young man offered a calm smile as he began to speak into the microphone. "Nice to meet all of you." He made a slight bow while holding the microphone and noticed the confusion on the faces of the audience. "I'll begin by introducing myself," he said into the mic. "My name is Shinro Suzuki, the founder and CEO of Kishin Electronics. It's a pleasure to meet all of you." Shin smiled as he made his introduction. However, when the crowd at the event and the television viewers heard his introduction, a sense of bewilderment overcame them. Sawa Arita, who was watching the television with his group in their newly acquired luxurious apartment, exclaimed with a stammer, It's the myth." He pointed at the television, which displayed a close-up of the young man's face, and exclaimed, "It's the legend, the legendary Shinro and Sony." His friends were equally shocked as they gazed at the young man on the television, their hearts racing. People all across Japan found themselves brimming with excitement as they finally got to see the founder and CEO of Kishin Electronics and learn the full name of the previously mysterious figure in their minds. Then, with a smile, the young man on the television announced, "Kishin Electronics will introduce our new video game console. Readers, please exercise more patience with my chapters, and I will indeed introduce the Kishin 16-bit and Game Boy in the upcoming chapter." Chapter 152, SKESAMD Game Boy. Many people's eyes were fixed on Shinro Suzuki on the stage as they eagerly awaited his words. The press conference attendees and home viewers were anticipating the unveiling of Kishin's new video game console. Shin smiled at the crowd while presenting the projected image of the sleek, white Kishin video game console. The controller, round and smooth, was a notable departure from the previous Kishin SKT Famicom controller. The console's appearance resembled KES in the US or a US version of the Kishin SKT Famicom. A man then approached the stage, holding what seemed to be the projected video game console. He carefully placed it on a table near Shin. Shin acknowledged the man with a smile and proceeded to connect the video game console to a nearby television on the stage. The image was soon displayed on the television screen in front of the audience. Shin turned his attention to the crowd, controller in hand, and announced, "Before I forget, everyone, this is the new Kishin's video game console, the Super Kishin Entertainment System." He paused with a faint smile and continued, "Featuring a 16-bit system, this console outperforms even the top two competitors in terms of optimization." Meanwhile, Sawa Arita and his group of friends focused their attention on the SKES displayed on the television. Simultaneously, Kinoshita Yoshi, a video game developer, and his friends examined the video game console, also watching it through the television. Excitement filled the room as many video game players eagerly watched the event. Business figures like Asahi Tanaka, the chairman of Tora Corporation, and Taro Ikeda, the president of Tora Corporation, wore solemn expressions as they observed the video game console on the stage and the image being projected. Shiko and Seiki wore serious and somber expressions, in contrast to Shiro, the chairman of the Suzuki Group, who sported a faint smile. On the stage, Shin addressed the audience as the cameras flashed in his direction. He announced, "Let's take a look at the starting lineup of games for our SKES." Shin then inserted a video game cartridge into the SKES, and the console powered up. Subsequently, the video game began to run. The projected image on the stage was visible to the crowd and media outlets, while viewers at home also got a close-up view on their televisions. The television screen where Shin connected the SKES displayed the video game title and a 2D animation of a blue creature resembling a hedgehog, with motioned hands. The video game title was revealed to be Sonic the Hedgehog in English. The video game players who had attended the press conference erupted in cheers. Yet, a new video game? New Kishin video game? Yet, we love you, Shinro. The enthusiastic crowd's cheers were captured by various media outlets. Viewers at home also joined in the excitement. Children jumped with joy, adults waved their clenched fists in the air, and others, both young and old, couldn't help but jump excitedly like kids. Shin continued to showcase the SKES and the Sonic gameplay. As the crowd at the press conference and the viewers at home watched the gameplay of Kishin's Sonic video game, they became increasingly captivated, yearning to play it themselves. Sawa Arita, watching the television, gripped it tightly and exclaimed, "Grr! Give me that video game, Shinro." His friends were equally entranced, eagerly anticipating the release of Sonic the Hedgehog. After completing only the first stage, Shin stopped playing and turned to the crowd with a smile. He said, "As you can see, this is just one of Kishin's video games for the SKES, and there are many more interesting and outstanding video games for you to explore when the SKES is released." Shin's smile widened as he revealed that he had contributed to recreating indie games from his previous life with the assistance of Kishin's programmers. The crowd and the video game communities felt disappointed as they watched Shin step away from the SKES, assuming that the Kishin press conference was coming to an end. The expressions of Chairman Asahi of Tora Corporation and the President of Tora Corporation, Taro Ikeda, also became more composed. Shiko and Seiki sighed in relief, thinking that the press conference was finally concluding. After all, it appeared to be just another 16-bit console, which was nothing particularly groundbreaking. However, just as they were settling into this thought, and the media outlets were preparing to bombard Shin with questions, he took the microphone once more. But this is not the end for Kishin's electronic products. Shin paused as he retrieved something from his pocket and continued, "Let's welcome the Game Boy." He proudly presented the green-colored handheld device to everyone. As everyone laid eyes on it, and the cameras zoomed in for a closer look, both those in the press conference and viewers at home were puzzled by this new device. However, Chairman Asahi Tanaka suddenly wore a serious expression. He contemplated with a solemn face, could it be that device? Speculation arose that the handheld held by Shin might be capable of playing video games, especially with buttons reminiscent of a controller on the control panel. This realization gradually dawned on almost everyone in the room after a few seconds. Shin smiled as he observed the crowd's reactions and explained, "That's right, everyone." He paused for suspense and continued, "This is a handheld device that can play video games." His tone remained calm. The audience at the press conference and the viewers at home were left dumbfounded by Shin's announcement. They hadn't fully recovered when Shin declared, "I introduce to you, the Game Boy." The video game players in the press conference erupted with cheers. "Roar! Yet! Take my money!" a foreigner in the crowd shouted. Shin simply smiled, waiting for the crowd to settle down. Once the atmosphere calmed a bit, he asked, "Everyone, would you like to know the first lineup of video games for our Game Boy?" The video game players in the crowd responded enthusiastically. "What's in the lineup? We want to know. Come on." With a smile, Shin revealed, the first lineup of Game Boy video games includes Tetris. He paused, building anticipation, and then continued, "and Pokémon." Upon hearing this, the video game players attending the press conference cheered, while viewers at home also joined in the excitement. In contrast, figures like Tora and Suzuki, particularly Shiko and Seiki, along with Nico Tabata, became unusually solemn. The television ratings for the broadcasting channels airing the Kishin press conference soared when Shin mentioned Pokémon. Meanwhile, Chairman Asahi Tanaka of Tora Corporation contemplated with a solemn expression, "This is worse than I expected." As for why the development of SKES and Game Boy took longer than usual, Kishin, led by Shin, also ventured into GPU and CPU research similar to NVIDIA. They also conducted research in the mobile phone industry, considering Shin's knowledge of its future potential. Chapter 153, Features that shocked the electronics companies. The people in attendance at the Kishin press conference were either stunned or excited when Shin introduced the Game Boy. Following this, Shin smiled as the cameras of several media outlets closed in on his face. He then stated, "Now, I'll demonstrate the gameplay on this Game Boy." He reached into his pocket, retrieved a video game cartridge for the Game Boy, and inserted it into the device. Upon turning the Game Boy on with a switch, the Game Boy logo appeared on the screen. The video from the camera zoomed in on the Game Boy screen that Shin was holding, revealing that it displayed full color. Many attendees were surprised by this revelation. Shin explained through the microphone, "As you can see, our Game Boy features a built-in backlight, allowing you to see the screen even in bright conditions, as long as you activate this backlight switch," as he presented the switch located on the side of the Game Boy. Subsequently, the video game booted up, and the title of the game, Tetris, appeared on the screen. As Shin began to play the video game, it surprised everyone, especially President Taro Ikeda and CEO Nico Tabata, who were taken aback by the fact that the handheld device, known as the Game Boy, was actually in color. This revelation greatly alarmed them, and those with expertise in electronics research couldn't help but collectively wonder, how did they achieve this? The idea that Kishin, a relatively small company in their eyes, could possess the research capability to create such a handheld device in color was inconceivable. It's important to note that current phone technology was not yet in color, and now Kishin was introducing a Game Boy, only slightly larger than a standard phone, in full color. Chairman Asahi Tanaka glanced at Chairman Shiro, who had secretly attended the press conference, and pondered, could it be that the Suzuki Group is secretly assisting Kishin? However, upon closer examination of Chairman Shiro Suzuki's expression, he too noticed the bewilderment and shock on Chairman Shiro Suzuki's face. As a result, Chairman Asahi Tanaka dismissed that idea for the time being. Even Shiko and Seiki observed the Game Boy with greater seriousness this time. It was worth noting that even the Suzuki Group had not conducted research on handheld video game consoles, as their focus remained on cellular phone research. Meanwhile, the video game enthusiasts in the audience were completely engrossed as Shin played Tetris on the Game Boy. Although the graphics and color palette couldn't match those of an arcade, it was quite impressive considering the Game Boy's portable design. After finishing his game, Shin smiled and announced, "Our Game Boy has more video games that won't be revealed at this press conference, but I'll showcase the features of our Game Boy." He paused and looked at Myra, who stepped onto the stage holding another Game Boy. Shin continued, "Our Game Boy can also be linked together using a Game Link cable." Saying that, Myra brings a cable and connected one end to the pink Game Boy she held, while Shin connected the other end to his Game Boy. Shin addressed the crowd through the microphone, and his voice resonated throughout the building. Once the two Game Boys are linked, this enables multiplayer gaming. Since Myra's Game Boy had a Tetris video game cartridge as well, and it was already up and running, Shin selected the multiplayer option on his Game Boy, and the two engaged in a Game Boy Tetris battle. This innovative concept captivated everyone in the audience, and those at home hardly blinked as they remained fixated on their television screens. Kinoshita Yoshi, who was also watching the event on television, saw this as a new opportunity presented by Kishin. It seemed they might have the chance to create video games for the Game Boy if Kishin decided to open the platform, similar to what they had done with the Kishin SKT Famicom. While CEO Nico Tabata carefully examined the features of the Game Boy and its video game, he couldn't help but be genuinely interested in the handheld video game console. However, he reminded himself that it was a product from a competitor. After Shin and Myra concluded their multiplayer Game Boy session, Shin proceeded to introduce the Game Boy AC adapter for charging and the Super Game Boy. He explained, with the assistance of the Super Game Boy, you can enjoy Game Boy games on our SKES, allowing you to play your Game Boy video games on a wider and larger television screen. The video game enthusiasts both at the press conference and in their respective homes erupted in enthusiastic cheers. "Sell SKES and Game Boy, now!" suddenly rang out from the crowd as one individual shouted fervently, the loudness of their voice ensuring everyone heard. Their persistent repetition of these words made them seem somewhat foolish. However, their enthusiasm was infectious, prompting many other video game players to echo the slogan, "Sell SKES and Game Boy, now!" The phrase "Sell SKES and Game Boy, now!" became a rallying cry among the crowd of video game enthusiasts, capturing the attention of both Japanese and foreign media outlets. Shin couldn't help but chuckle wryly as he observed the enthusiastic crowd's cheers and heard their calls. With a warm smile, he reassured them, saying, "Don't worry, everyone." He paused for dramatic effect and then continued, Kishin will officially launch the SKES and Game Boy, along with their accompanying accessories, on February 10, 1992. At the sound of this announcement, the video game players, both in the press conference and in their respective homes, erupted in thunderous cheers. Sazuma Mansion. Sazuma watched the TV with intense focus and roared in frustration, that young Shinro was actually hiding such a treasure from me. He clenched his Kakaji in his teeth and declared, "Now I want one." While he could easily ask his youngest grandson Shinro for the SKES or Game Boy, his disciplined nature prevented him from resorting to such requests unless Shinro willingly offered these coveted treasures. Kumiko, by his side, smiled faintly and commented, "Oh, dear. You typically care very little for material possessions, yet you desire something that is usually meant for children." Sazuma blushed and retorted, "It's not just for children." The introduction of the SKES and Game Boy quickly became a sensation in Japan. Even before the anticipated date of February 10, 1992, hordes of eager video game players, whether from Tora or Suzuki, began lining up at various Kishin retail stores and sections in malls, hoping to get their hands on the SKES, Game Boy and their video games ahead of time. Many even set up tents outside several Kishin retail stores in Tokyo and various cities across Japan. This level of craze had been expected, but it still managed to surprise many. Chapter 154, Kishin Video Games Lineup. The news of Kishin releasing their own 16-bit console spread to Asia and the USA. What's even more interesting is that several foreign media outlets from various Asian countries, and most from the USA, also covered Kishin's press conference. The news of the Game Boy also reached the ears of Americans. "This isn't fair. Why is such a product only available in Japan?" an American shouted as he saw the news on TV. Video game communities also discussed among themselves, saying, "I've already booked a flight to Japan to buy the latest products." "Me too. Yeah, I was also learning Japanese." In Japan, it's not yet February 10, 1992, but the craze for Kishin's latest products has become evident to many. Those who have no interest in Kishin's products criticized the people lining up outside stores. Japanese media outlets criticized Kishin for fueling the craze among the youth. However, no matter how much they complained, they couldn't take any action since the government wouldn't intervene with Kishin, given that Kishin contributed at least a small amount to the country's economy. Meanwhile, the people waiting in line discussed amongst themselves. I really want to play Pokemon. Me too. Someone else chimed in. It's a shame that the king of video games, Shinro, didn't showcase the Pokemon video game. Another person sighed. Why be sad? We'll soon find out when we get one, said an optimist. Yeah, but look at that never-ending line, a young man observed, squinting as the line seemed to stretch endlessly, obscuring the store's front. Cough. Are we sure this line leads to Kishin's store? A man expressed doubts, mainly because they couldn't even see the store anymore. Damn it. I just want to play Tetris on Game Boy, grumbled a middle-aged man behind them. This long line, perhaps only Kishin could elicit such enthusiasm from the Japanese, a population not known for being easily impressed. It was already February 9, 1992, and some people had left the line for various reasons, which pleased those who were determined to keep waiting. Those who came prepared had tents, and some had even set up a hot pot for their convenience. Some had settled in with sleeping bags on the sidewalk. Finally, it was February 10, 1992, and the Kishin stores, as well as the Kishin sections in various malls, began distributing the Super KES and Game Boy. The people waiting in line grew increasingly excited as they moved forward. Sawa Arita, who had the good fortune of being at the front of the line with his tent, was poised to be the first to enter the store and purchase the Super KES and Game Boy, along with the new video games. As for his friends who had also come to buy the Super KES and Game Boy, they were likely still somewhere in the line, patiently waiting. Sawa Arita was greeted by a saleswoman, and he quickly located the Super KES and Game Boy. He said, "I'll take these," as he picked them up. The saleswoman provided the price, and Sawa Arita was surprised by the cost, but he proceeded with the purchase. He then inquired, "Could you introduce me to the new Kishin video games for SKES and Game Boy?" Sawa Arita was in no hurry and paid no mind to the disapproving glances from those still waiting in line outside. The saleswoman responded with a smile, "You can find the video game section over there, and the video game cartridges for SKES and Game Boy are on display. In the Game Boy box, you'll also find a complimentary Tetris game." Sawa Arita nodded and made his way to the video game section. As he did so, the saleswoman opened the store door to allow the people at the front of the line to proceed. Upon reaching the video game section, Sawa Arita noticed the shelves filled with Game Boy game cartridges, each with titles and cover art that piqued his interest. Games like Super Mario Land, Tetris, Donkey Kong, Drive Mario, The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Kirby's Dream Land, Metroid 2, Return of Samus, Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, Mega Man, Final Fantasy Adventure, and Pokémon Red and Blue were on display. This lineup of video games thrilled Sawa Arita, and he couldn't wait to see what the Super KES games had to offer. Among the lineup of video games, Sawa Arita was pleasantly surprised to find a mix of familiar and unfamiliar IPs. The familiar video game titles included Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Donkey Kong Country, Super Metroid, and Street Fighter II, The World Warrior. The unfamiliar or possibly new additions to the lineup comprised Sonic the Hedgehog, Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, Secret of Mana, Star Fox, Shovel Knight, and, finally, Celeste. Sawa Arita couldn't help but feel excitement when he saw the variety of video games available for the SKES. Although the only game he was familiar with was Sonic the Hedgehog, as demonstrated by the king of video games, Shinro, during the press conference, Sawa Arita had faith in Kishin's ability to create high-quality video games. What was truly surprising was the fact that the video game Celeste came with its own controller. So, when he purchased the video game Celeste, he had to get the controller that was specifically compatible with it. In a way, it resembled the situation with Duck Hunt. This piqued Sawa Arata's interest, and he explored the video game section further. He discovered that many of Kishin's SKT Famicom video games could be exchanged at the store for remastered versions. For example, Super Mario Bros. Could be exchanged for a remastered Super Mario Bros. For the Super CES. A significant number of Kishin's SKT Famicom video games had been remastered for the Super CES. As time passed, Sawa Arata ended up purchasing all the video games available for the Super CES and Game Boy, whether they were familiar titles or the new and unfamiliar ones. More and more people had the opportunity to enter Kishin's stores or sections in malls to purchase the Super CES and Game Boy, along with their respective video games. Many were curious about Kishin's new video games, and everyone was in for a delightful surprise as they tried each of Kishin's new titles, starting with Sonic the Hedgehog, while others embarked on adventures in the sequel to The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past or Super Mario World. Tora and Suzuki could only watch with envy as people purchased Kishin's consoles, handhelds, and video games. There was no denying that Kishin would be reaping significant profits during this time. Chapter 155, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to a Past Introduction and Graphics. In a particular Tokyo household, Niwa Makoto purchased Kishin's SKES and Game Boy, depleting his savings entirely to acquire The Legend of Zelda video game. He also bought the revamped Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link for SKES, which had been available for Kishin SKT Famicom for a while. However, it didn't garner much attention because 16-bit video games were steadily gaining popularity. The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link was also accessible for Game Boy, but due to his limited funds, Niwa Makoto couldn't afford it. Therefore, apart from Super Mario World and The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Niwa Makoto primarily played The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. It was a side-scrolling video game resembling Super Mario Bros. And Metroid, but it incorporated gameplay elements reminiscent of Dragon Quest. In all honesty, Niwa Makoto couldn't afford The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link because the popularity of 16-bit video games was on the rise, and people were gravitating towards the improved graphics of 16-bit, causing a decline in Kishin's video game sales, including The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, which didn't perform well. Now, when Kishin released their own 16-bit video games along with a surprising product, the handheld Game Boy, people started taking notice of Kishin's previously overlooked video games, like The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Niwa Makoto had a deep fondness for The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link due to its innovative gameplay, combining elements from Dragon Quest and Super Mario Bros. For an engaging and captivating gaming experience. Upon completing The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Niwa Makoto eagerly inserted The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past into the SKES. This time, Niwa Makoto, along with other The Legend of Zelda fans, was eagerly anticipating the graphics and gameplay of The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, a 16-bit masterpiece by Kishin. It wasn't just him, video game enthusiasts who were fans of The Legend of Zelda were eagerly awaiting the SKES's 16-bit graphics and enhanced animation capabilities. As expected, Niwa Makoto, along with others in their respective homes, was not disappointed when The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past title graced the screen. The sprites, color palette, and overall graphics were immediately striking, evident from the moment the menu appeared. With a smile, Niwa Makoto exclaimed, "Hehe, with graphics like this, it's clear that Kishin has outdone Tora and Suzuki's 16-bit consoles." Indeed, the game's content, performance, sound, and graphics surpassed those of the Tora and Suzuki 16-bit consoles. Niwa Makoto launched the video game, and it finally began. As the scene transitioned, a message appeared, long ago, in the beautiful kingdom of Hyrule, surrounded by mountains and forests. Then another message followed, legends told of an omnipotent and omniscient golden power that resided in a hidden land. The image above the text changed to armored soldiers seemingly locked in combat as the narrative continued, many people aggressively sought to enter the hidden Golden Land. The text further explained, but no one ever returned. One day, evil power began to flow from the Golden Land. Another message added, so the king commanded the 7 wise men to seal the gate to the land of golden power. The image banner now displayed the 7 figures. That seal was supposed to endure for all time. The image changed once more to robed men with outstretched hands pointing at a symbol, as the text continued to scroll. But, as time passed, these events became obscured by the mists of time and transformed into legend. Then, to Niwa-Makoto's surprise, the scene transitioned into what appeared to be a map. His amazement grew as the camera seemingly started moving, seemingly transforming the 2D pixelated map into a 3D model. It approached what seemed to be a square castle within an open green space. As the camera drew near to the castle's entrance, the scene seamlessly transitioned into the interior. The screen scrolled upwards, leading to the grandeur of the throne room. A figure sat upon the throne, and beside it, an empty throne awaited. At the far end of the throne room, 2 swords were prominently crossed on a soft cushioned table or surface. A blue text message scrolled across the screen. A mysterious wizard known as Aghanim came to Hyrule to release the seal. He eliminated. Niwa-Makoto pushed a button, and the text continued, the good king of Hyrule. The scene shifted to what appeared to be a prison, with a few figures gathered outside. 2 soldiers were guarding the prison, one of them prodding a captive character with a sword. A prominent character, clad in green, approached the prison gate. The character in green raised their hands, and a blue text message rolled onto the screen. Through evil magic, he began to make descendants of the 7 wise men vanish. 1. Niwa-Makoto continued with the text message, after the other. The scene then transitioned to an altar, surrounded by blue-armored soldiers and one in red armor. In the center of the altar stood the character in green, with raised hands. The character in green was positioned in front of another smaller figure also covered in green, which floated at the center of the altar. After a while, the smaller figure disappeared in a spark of light, accompanied by the blue text, and the time for Princess Zelda is drawing near. The screen then went black, displaying the text, registered trademark 1991 to 1992 Kishin. Next, the scene changed to player selection, offering options from 1 to 3. Niwa-Makoto was genuinely surprised by the 2-minute introduction. However, it still felt refreshing to witness Kishin's 16-bit console showcasing their sprites and graphics in this newly released 16-bit world. Upon selecting Player 1, Niwa-Makoto was prompted to set his in-game name, and he simply chose Niwa, his family name. The scene transitioned to a dimly lit room with a bed and a character lying on it. A blue text message appeared below, reading, "Help me," followed by "Please help me." The blue text continued to scroll, and as Niwa-Makoto pressed a button on the controller, it read, "I am a prisoner in a dungeon of the castle." Below, the blue text continued, "My name is Zelda." Subsequently, more text scrolled, saying, "The wizard, Aghanim, has done something to the other missing girls. Now only I remain." It went on to explain, Aghanim has seized control of the castle and is now trying to open the 7 wise men's seal. Another blue text message followed. "I am in the dungeon of the castle." Finally, with a plea, the screen displayed a blue text, "Please help me." Then, the dark room transformed as the scene burst into vibrant colors. Link was seated at his bedside, and a blue-haired character said, "Link, I'm going out for a while. I'll be back by morning. Don't leave the house." Finally, Niwa-Makoto gained control of Link, guiding his character to the treasure chest in Link's room. Upon opening the treasure box, a lamp item floated out, and a blue text within a square border read, "You got the lamp. Now you can light torches and see your way in darkness." Niwa-Makoto then maneuvered his in-game character, Link, out of the house. The background outside revealed a rainy setting, and thus, Niwa-Makoto delved into playing The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past video game. Those fortunate enough to experience The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past were truly impressed by the sprite animations and graphics capabilities of SKES, which outshone the Tora and Suzuki 16-bit consoles. Chapter 156, Pokémon Video Games. In a certain corner of Tokyo, Japan, a group of children gathered together. Some of them proudly displayed their Game Boys to the envy of their friends. A boy named Kiichi eagerly pulled his blue Game Boy from his pocket and exclaimed, "Look! I've got a Game Boy!" Kiichi couldn't help but bask in the envious gazes of the other kids. Soon after, another boy named Mitsuo showcased his green Game Boy, declaring, "I'm not the only one with one. My dad got me one too." Mitsuo showed off his green Game Boy to the rest of the group, intensifying their envy. One of their friends asked, "Can you play Pokémon on that Game Boy?" Displaying his cluelessness. Kiichi and Mitsuo exchanged glances, and Kiichi confessed, "Well, I only brought the Tetris video game." He looked at Mitsuo, hoping he had a Pokémon cartridge. All their friends turned their attention to Mitsuo, who felt the weight of their expectations. He shook his head and admitted, "I left mine too. I only brought the video game Drive Mario." Little did they know, Mitsuo's Pokémon cartridge was in his father's hands as his father played Pokémon on his own Game Boy. Then, a boy named Tatsuo, wearing an ash cap, suddenly ran over and proudly displayed his yellow Game Boy. "Hey, Kiichi, Mitsuo, you guys have Game Boys too?" Both Kiichi and Mitsuo nodded, and Tatsuo excitedly exclaimed, "Awesome! Let's play Pokémon!" He revealed his Pokémon Red video game cartridge. As the kids gathered around, one of them couldn't contain their excitement. "You have a Pokémon video game?" Tatsuo nodded with a smirk. His friends were even more excited than him, with one of them requesting, "Can you play it?" Yet, Kiichi-san and Mitsuo-san didn't bring the Pokémon video game. "Can you play it?" another child eagerly asked. Tatsuo was taken aback when he learned that Kiichi and Mitsuo hadn't brought their Pokémon video games. He smirked at his friends and declared, "All right, I'll play Pokémon." He inserted Pokémon Red into the cartridge slot on the back of his Game Boy, turned on the device, and activated the backlight so that everyone could see the screen clearly, even in the middle of the day, thanks to the sunlight. As the Game Boy powered up, the familiar Game Boy and Kishin logos appeared on the screen. Then, an image of two colorful Pokémon facing off materialized. It was Gengar and Nidorino, just like in the early scenes of the first Pokémon episode. One of the kids on the side excitedly exclaimed, "Hey, that's Gengar and Nidorino battling each other, just like in episode 1 of Pokémon." Another nodded in agreement, adding, "Yeah." A girl chimed in with enthusiasm, "This is so exciting." Soon, the Pokémon Red video game loaded, displaying the title Pokémon trademark with red version written below it. Below the title, a character resembling Ash, complete with his iconic hat and holding a Pokeball, stood as the word Pokémon continuously flashed by his side. In the lower section, there was a copyright notice, Copyright 91/92 Kishin Entertainment trademark. The sight of this brought excitement to the kids, including Kiichi and Mitsuo, who were already Game Boy owners. The thrill of seeing it on Tatsuo's screen was infectious. Tatsuo, in truth, was also brimming with excitement. This was the first time he had inserted Pokémon Red into his Game Boy. His older brother had previously played Pokémon Blue on it, and their parents had designated Pokémon Red for him. As soon as his brother finished, Tatsuo couldn't wait to show off his Game Boy and Pokémon Red to his friends. His friends were indeed impressed, including the two who already owned Game Boys, because Tatsuo had the coveted Pokémon Red video game. Eager to start, Tatsuo-chan! A girl cheered as she watched the Game Boy screen. Tatsuo glanced at the girl and nodded, blushing slightly. Even his crush was captivated by the moment. Kiichi and Mitsuo exchanged envious looks. It turned out that the girl who had urged Tatsuo was their crush too. She was undeniably pretty. As the Pokémon slid across the screen beside the Ash-like character, Tatsuo eagerly pressed the start button on his Game Boy. A themed sound reminiscent of the Pokémon anime filled the air. In the upper left corner of the screen, a square border materialized. Inside, there were text options like Continue, New Game, and Option. Tatsuo confidently selected New Game. Suddenly, the figure and character of Professor Oak, known from Pokémon Episode 1, appeared in the center of the screen. Below the rectangular border, a text message displayed, starting with a friendly hello. Tatsuo pressed a button, and the message continued, "Welcome to the world of Pokémon." With another press, it read, "My name is Oak. People call me the Pokémon Prof." Tatsuo kept pressing the button as the message unfolded. Then, the scene shifted, and the screen turned white with a slight reddish tint as a purple Nidorino Pokémon emerged. Within the rectangular border, a message appeared, "This world is filled with creatures called Pokémon," accompanied by a unique Pokémon sound. The message continued to roll within the border. For some people, Pokémon are pets. Others use them for battles. Tatsuo kept pressing the button as they read, "As for myself, I study Pokémon as a profession." Once again, the screen transitioned to a reddish-white backdrop as the Pokémon disappeared. Next, the character, dressed in green with a red cap reminiscent of Ash, took center stage on the screen. Within the rectangular border, a message appeared, prompting, "First, what is your name?" A slightly larger square border emerged, labeled Name in the center. Options like New Name, Red, Ash, and Jack were displayed. Tatsuo opted for New Name, and an array of alphabet keys appeared on the screen, allowing him to select the letters that formed his name, Tatsuo. After entering his name, Tatsuo confirmed it. The message typed in, "Right. Your name is Tatsuo." Another character appeared on the screen, and within the rectangular border, a message read, "This is my grandson. He's been your rival since you were a baby." As Tatsuo continued to tap a button, another message followed. What is his name again?" Similar to before, a slightly larger square border appeared, with name at the upper line. Options such as New Name, Blue, Gary, and John were presented. Tatsuo frowned and questioned, "Why are these English names?" Another kid chimed in, saying, "Just choose Gary, that's his name in the Pokémon anime." Tatsuo nodded and selected Gary. The message below the rectangular border confirmed, "That's right. I remember now. His name is Gary." Shortly after, Gary's character disappeared, and the figure wearing red clothes and a red cap took the stage. The message beneath the rectangular border stated, "Tatsuo," and then continued, "Your very own legend is about to unfold." The text message further read, "A world of dreams and adventures with Pokémon awaits. Let's go." Suddenly, the character in red clothing and a red cap, which Tatsuo and his friends assumed was his in-game character, started to be outlined by lines. The character gradually disappeared, leaving behind only the outline. Slowly, the drawn lines of the figure began to shrink, and in their place emerged a small, cute character, replacing the Ash-like figure. Tatsuo and the kids were taken by surprise, with Kiichi exclaiming, "Oh, he became smaller." Some of the kids felt a bit disappointed at first, but their excitement quickly returned as they continued to watch Tatsuo's Game Boy screen. Then, the scene transitioned, and it revealed a room with the small character that was supposed to represent Tatsuo's in-game character standing in front of a TV. A video game console seemed to be connected to the TV. One of the kids remarked, "Oh, it must be a Tora VG, right?" Another kid contradicted, saying, "Idiot. That's a Suzuki Entertainment System." Kiichi and Mitsuo, hearing their friend's playful argument, couldn't help but smirk. Their crush, the girl, chimed in, "You two are wrong. It's the Kishin Famicom." The two kids remained unconvinced until they heard Tatsuo say, "You guys, come and read this." The two kids were puzzled, and they turned their attention to the Game Boy screen. The message displayed within the rectangular border read, "Tatsuo is playing the SKES." "What's SKES?" the girl inquired, clearly puzzled, and the two kids who had been arguing earlier were equally confused. Tatsuo sported a confident smirk as he explained, "It's the new Kishin video game console. Super Kishin Entertainment System." The kids responded with amazement, exclaiming, "Wow! Kishin!" One of the kids who had previously mentioned Tora VG furrowed his brow in confusion. The kid who had suggested Suzuki Entertainment System also looked perplexed and said, "Why would he be playing a Kishin video game console?" It appeared that these two had overlooked the boot-up logo on the Game Boy. Mitsuo chimed in with a wry smile, "Kishin created Pokémon." The two kids, along with some others who were completely unaware, gasped in surprise, "Really?" Kiichi nodded and remarked, "Yes. It's surprising that some of you didn't know." Then another kid chimed in, saying, "My mother always tells me to stay away from anything related to Kishin." "Same here. My father does too." Another added. Tatsuo, who overheard their comments, couldn't help but smirk with a touch of disdain, thinking, "Poor kids." He considered this from the perspective of someone who didn't feel like a kid anymore. With that, Tatsuo resumed playing the Pokémon Red video game, and the kids returned to watching. Tatsuo, who overheard the comments, couldn't help but smirk with a hint of condescension, thinking, "Poor kids." It was as if he no longer saw himself as a child. He refocused his attention on playing Pokémon Red, and the kids went back to watching. As Tatsuo's in-game character ventured outside the house, he reached the moment of choosing one of the three Pokémon from Professor Oak. "Choose that one," one kid suggested. "No, that one," another kid chimed in. "I think the third one looks good," Kiichi added his opinion. Tatsuo was about to respond, feeling torn, when his crush, the girl, spoke up, "Tatsuo-chan, choose the second one." Upon hearing this, Tatsuo quickly nodded and exclaimed, "I choose you," as he picked the second Pokémon. The onlookers were left speechless. Tatsuo clearly wasn't heeding their opinions, but he listened to a girl? This situation seemed rather unfair to the group of kids who were also Tatsuo's friends. Meanwhile, the Pokémon Red and Blue video games were steadily gaining attention, marking a long-awaited moment for Pokémon fans. I'll release 4 chapters in the next update. It's 4 chapter as it was already including the additional bonus chapters. If this novel reaches the top 1, the plan remains the same. I'll update with the 4 chapters in the next release, November 8 GMT +8:00, including the additional 1 chapter. Chapter 157, Celestai. Super CES and Game Boy video games gradually gained popularity among the masses, whether it was titles like The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past and Super Metroid. However, it was the sales of Super Mario World that truly skyrocketed. Simultaneously, Sonic the Hedgehog was also on the rise in terms of popularity. Tora and Suzuki could only watch as their video game consoles and video games gradually declined in significance. Meanwhile, at Suzuki Finance headquarters, in their office, Shiko and Seiki discussed their strategy with Nico Tabata. While idly playing with a Game Boy, Shiko remarked, "We should consider adding this product to our inventory." Seiki agreed with a nod and said, "Although it's not easy to admit, our younger brother has shown remarkable innovation with Game Boy." Nico Tabata concurred, saying, "Kishin has truly surprised us this time." He paused, a smile playing on his lips, and continued, "But, as we've done before, we can follow in Kishin's footsteps." Hearing Nico Tabata's words, Shiko and Seiki couldn't help but feel a sense of resignation as they prepared to once again follow Kishin's path in the world of video game consoles and innovations. Tora and Suzuki had their own strategies and plans in place before Kishin's release of SKES and Game Boy. The transition from 8-bit to 16-bit video games was already underway, and Tora and Suzuki were leading in this transition. However, when Kishin introduced their own 16-bit console, SKES, and Game Boy, Tora and Suzuki found themselves compelled to follow in Kishin's footsteps once again. Suzuki was devising their own handheld video game console, and Tora wasn't about to be left behind. They too began planning to create a handheld device inspired by Kishin's innovation. While Tora and Suzuki intended to make their handheld video game consoles similar to Kishin's, they were careful not to infringe on copyrights, ensuring their unique touch. This strategy wasn't new to Tora and Suzuki. They had previously introduced their own brick toy to both Japan and the USA. Unfortunately, due to the overwhelming popularity of SKES and Game Boy, their brick toys didn't gain much attention in the market. In a discussion among fans of Tora, Suzuki, and Kishin, a Tora fan pointed out, while Sonic the Hedgehog is a recent hit from Kishin, the true popularity still lies in their early classics like Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, and Super Metroid, among others. Kishin's newer games are yet to reach the same level of acclaim. That's natural. They're still new, after all. A Kishin fan remarked. Then a Suzuki fan chimed in, saying, haha, it's because only their original, early video game titles gain popularity. Besides Sonic the Hedgehog, the rest hardly garner any attention. Another Kishin fan added, at the very least, Kishin's new video games will be more popular than those from Tora and Suzuki. When Kishin fans heard this, they burst into laughter, while Tora and Suzuki fans blushed and attempted to counter. The notion that Kishin's video games with well-known titles would become popular became widely acknowledged. However, in the process, they overlooked the video game that CEO Shin held the highest expectations for, which was Celeste. Shin, along with his team of video game developers, had been working on Celeste for several months. Even when they only had the prototype of SKES at that time, Shin and the developers were already creating games for SKES, with Celeste receiving the most attention. This particular video game was inspired by Shin's previous life, and it posed a significant challenge to adapt it to a 16-bit console due to the system's limitations and limited resources. Despite SKES being optimized and superior to Tora and Suzuki's consoles, recreating Celeste for a 16-bit platform proved to be a formidable task, even though its gameplay was 2D and pixelated. As a result, Shin replaced the 3D stage selection of Celeste with a simpler 2D pixelated version. Even though Kishin's SKES had its limitations for running Celeste, Shin dedicated himself to optimizing SKES. Through rigorous testing and finalization, Shin became confident that his SKES outperformed even the Nintendo SNES from his previous life. With these SKES optimizations, Shin successfully ran his revamped Celeste on the platform by maximizing the potential of Kishin's SKES. Rookie Suzuki purchased SKES and Game Boy, along with their video games. In all honesty, she could have asked her brother, Shinro, for SKES and Game Boy at any time, but she still wanted to support her brother's business. As a few days passed, the lines at various stores and malls significantly shortened. She purchased a selection of video games that piqued her interest, including Sonic the Hedgehog, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Super Mario World, and Celeste. Additionally, she acquired a few Game Boy games. Rookie's decision to buy Celeste was primarily influenced by the game's red-haired female character, which intrigued her. Moreover, she found the game's storyline captivating just by reading the manual. Upon her return to the Suzuki mansion, she went straight to her room, turned on her Suzuki television, placed the SKES in front of the screen, and connected it. She inserted Super Mario World, and as the SKES and the game booted up, she saw the title Super Mario World and pressed start, immersing herself in the game. Rookie was immediately drawn in by the new video game style of Super Mario World and noticed the significant graphics improvement that Kishin had made in both SKES and the video games. After playing for a while, she decided to switch Super Mario World with Celeste. Her curiosity about this new Kishin video game had piqued her interest. While she was familiar with titles like Sonic the Hedgehog and The Legend of Zelda, Celeste remained an unknown. Rookie inserted Celeste into the SKES cartridge slot, and the screen displayed the Kishin and SKES logos as the game booted up. Rookie smiled and remarked, "I have a feeling this video game is going to be good." Chapter 158, Celeste 2. In the Suzuki mansion, inside Rookie's room, she was currently inserting the Celeste video game controller into her SKES console. The controller had a distinct design, with additional left and right analog sticks and shoulder buttons labeled as R1, L1, R2, and L2, in addition to the familiar start and select buttons. These features set it apart from the standard SKES controller. Rookie was relatively new to this controller, having been more accustomed to the simplicity of the Kishin SKT Famicom and the traditional SKES controllers. However, she didn't mind the unique controller for Celeste. It hinted at the special nature of the game, much like the independent controller for Duck Hunt. With everything set up, Rookie powered on the SKES console and launched the Celeste video game. The 2D pixelated title of Celeste and a snowy mountain scene filled the screen. Rookie eagerly pressed the start button as the game finally began. On the screen, a 2D pixelated scene depicted falling snowflakes against a nighttime backdrop. Pixelated text appeared, reading, "This is it, Madeline," and then faded to be replaced by, "Just breathe." After a moment, another message appeared, replacing the previous one, asking, "Why are you so nervous?" As the screen darkened, Rookie felt a sense of confusion. A circle of light emerged in the lower left corner of the dark background, revealing a 2D grassy landscape under a starry sky. Rookie furrowed her brows in anticipation as the darkness gave way, and the full scene unveiled itself to her. Rookie couldn't help but smile and said, "This is intriguing." She was genuinely curious about the unique start of the game. There was a brief introduction, and then the game immediately launched without the typical video game menu found in other Kishin, Tora, or Suzuki titles. Taking control of her in-game character, Rookie guided the character through the game world. As her character leaped, Rookie was captivated by the animations, the dust animation, the well-crafted sound effects, and the captivating music. "Wow! Fourth brother must have put a lot of effort into this one," Rookie mused with a faint smile. Unbeknownst to her, her elder sister, Reina, was discreetly peeking through the door, watching Rookie play. She couldn't help but wonder, is this one of the new products from my somewhat foolish fourth brother's company? Her gaze remained fixed on the television screen, where Celeste was unfolding in a side-scrolling gameplay style. While Reina observed with curiosity, Rookie remained engrossed in the game, guiding her character forward. However, as her character jumped below an ice block, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The ice block suddenly plummeted, catching Rookie off guard, and her in-game character was crushed by the massive ice block. As Rookie stared in surprise, a circular animation of orbs circled around her in-game character's previous position before returning to the character's starting point. The screen momentarily went black, and her in-game character respawned at the initial position. "That certainly caught me off guard," Rookie chuckled, resuming her playthrough. This time, Rookie proceeded with more caution, swiftly jumping to the other side of the area to avoid the impending ice block. It fell, but her in-game character remained unscathed. Phew! A sigh of relief resonated, though it didn't come from Rookie. She turned her head, noticing that her room's door was slightly ajar, and someone was discreetly peeking inside. Startled, Rookie paused the Celeste video game and approached the door. "Kia!" she exclaimed in surprise upon discovering it was her elder sister spying on her. Rookie's initial frown softened as she asked, "Big sis? What are you doing?" Blushing and flustered, Reina stumbled onto the floor and stammered, "And nothing." Rookie couldn't help but tease her sister, noting her reddening face. "Are you watching me play?" she asked with a playful tone. Reina vehemently denied it while still blushing, "Of course not." Seeing her immature elder sister's evident embarrassment, Rookie smiled and invited her inside. "You can come in, you know." Reina hesitated, glancing at the television screen playing Celeste before finally saying, "Well." Rookie smiled warmly and gently took her elder sister's hand, leading her into the room. "Hey!" Reina was caught off guard by Rookie's action but then was invited to sit. "Have a seat, big sis." Reina hesitated for a moment but finally relented, saying, "Well, if you say so." She glanced at the television and the SKES console, noticing a neat stack of video games beside it. Curiosity got the best of her, and she couldn't help but ask, "What are you playing?" Her tone betrayed her genuine interest despite trying to hide it. Rookie chuckled and decided not to tease her sister any further. "It's a new Kishin video game, Celeste. You might have forgotten, but it's from our fourth brother's company." Reina nodded, and she observed as Rookie took the controller and started the Celeste video game. She watched intently as Rookie guided her in-game character, a character with red hair. Rookie maneuvered her in-game character to leap constantly, and Reina watched with curiosity. She couldn't quite explain it, but watching others play a video game brought her a sense of peace and entertainment. On the screen, Rookie encountered an obstacle that left both her and Reina puzzled. They were unsure how to make her in-game character jump across a tall, ice-covered ledge, with a crow perched at the top of it, letting out a caw. Then, an instruction appeared above the crow in a square speech bubble. It read, "Climb, hold L1, and then the square speech bubble flipped to reveal another instruction, "Climb L1 plus dot." Rookie followed the instruction and expertly maneuvered her in-game character to climb the obstacle. As her character ascended, the crow took flight, and Rookie continued to play. This time, she combined the climbing controls with jumping, and as her in-game character advanced, both Rookie and Reina spotted a wooden house in the distance. A character stood in front of the house's door. "This video game is surprisingly relaxing," Reina commented genuinely as she watched Rookie play Celeste. Rookie nodded in agreement. As she approached the character in front of the wooden house's door, a dialog box appeared with a small frame featuring Rookie's red-haired in-game character in the left corner. Text began to appear in the box, accompanied by a cute voice, presumably representing her in-game character, Madeline. Madeline's picture frame displayed speaking animations. "Excuse me, ma'am." The text read, and Rookie and Reina were both engrossed in the game, reading the text. Rookie guided her in-game character closer, and another dialog box appeared, featuring a small picture of Madeline in the left corner. The text typed in with the adorable sound of Madeline's voice. "The sign out front is busted. Is this the mountain trail?" The word mountain was colored in blue. Then, a dialog box materialized, showing a small picture of an old woman character in the right corner, and her picture also had a talking animation. The text inside the dialog box read, "You're almost there. It's just across the bridge." Rookie guided her in-game character forward, assuming the dialogue had concluded. However, to her surprise, her in-game character turned to face the old woman character on its own, and the camera seemed to zoom in. Another dialog box featuring Madeline's text appeared once more. "By the way, you should call someone about your driveway. The ridge collapsed, and I nearly died," read the new text. This unexpected twist drew a chuckle from both Rookie and Reina. The white-haired old woman character responded with a speech square bubble containing the text "ha" as gibberish sounds accompanied her apparent laughter. Following this, a dialog box for the old woman character appeared with the text, "If my driveway almost did you in, the mountain might be a bit much for you." Madeline's dialog box reappeared, showing her annoyed expression, which amused Rookie and Reina. With a button press, a new text appeared in Madeline's dialog box, accompanied by her cute gibberish voice, "Well, if an old bat like you can survive out here, I think I'll be fine." The old woman character continued to laugh, and the camera drew closer. Her dialog box displayed more text, "Suit yourself." Then, that text was replaced by another line, "But you should know, Celeste Mountain is a strange place, followed by, you might see things. The old woman's dialogue continued, stating, things you ain't ready to see. Madeline's dialogue box reappeared with the text, you should seek help, lady. However, the old woman continued to laugh. After the dialogues concluded, Rookie couldn't help but comment with a wry smile, Madeline is so rude. Beside her, Reina simply replied, yeah, but I liked her. Rookie smiled in response, knowing that when it came to rudeness, her elder sister could easily surpass Madeline. Continuing her gameplay, Rookie directed her in-game character to advance, approaching a rocky bridge. The soothing background music suddenly shifted to a more intense tune. As her character crossed the bridge, the structure started to collapse. Quick! Move quickly! Urged Reina, who was watching with anticipation. Rookie felt the tension in the game and hurried to navigate her character, but the bridge ultimately crumbled, and her in-game character was on the verge of falling. Rookie couldn't help but exclaim, oh, snap! It's game over! Just as Rookie and Reina believed it was game over, time appeared to freeze. Rookie's in-game character hung midair, leaving both Rookie and Reina puzzled. Then, a crow descended on the other side, right in front of the falling Madeline. The crow pecked at the ground twice before letting out a resounding caw. A speech square bubble appeared above the crow, followed by an instruction for dash along with an arrow pointing up and right, plus the B button. Rookie and Reina exchanged a look, and Rookie followed the given instructions. Sure enough, her in-game character dashed through the air, and Madeline safely reached the other side, narrowly avoiding the fall. Phew! Rookie and Reina both breathed a sigh of relief. The camera then transitioned upwards, focusing on the night sky. With snowfall animations, white text appeared, reading, "You can do this." The scene shifted to a 2D pixelated selection stage, with the red-haired Madeline advancing to the next level. "I really liked it," Reina commented, and then, somewhat hesitantly, she asked, "Can I play?" Rookie was surprised but nodded, handing over the controller to her sister. Reina held the controller and entered the stage. Unbeknownst to many, the video game Celeste was gradually gaining attention among players, especially among female gamers. Soon, a review of the video game Celeste was published, and its high rating began to capture the attention of gamers in Japan. Chapter 159, Kishin Domination. The exceptional rating of the video game Celeste captured the attention of video game enthusiasts in Japan. Moreover, Shovel Knight also received praise, but it couldn't quite measure up to the acclaim earned by Celeste. In fact, Celeste was lauded as a video game ahead of its time, a statement that truly piqued the interest of gaming aficionados. Conversations in various corners of Tokyo, Japan, began to buzz with excitement. One individual remarked, "Playing Celeste brought back memories of Metroid." To which another responded, "Indeed, but in Celeste, we're introduced to the in-game character as female from the outset, unlike Metroid." Another gamer nodded and chimed in, "That's true, but given the high rating it received, I'm quite curious now, and perhaps I should give it a try." One of the players then admitted, "I hesitated to purchase it before because I needed to buy a controller compatible with Celeste, and money was tight. But with the stellar rating it's received, maybe I should give it a shot as well." Another person chimed in, saying, "Yeah, and I also enjoyed playing Shovel Knight and Earthbound." Meanwhile, in a certain high school classroom, a group of girls had gathered. A charming black-haired girl took the lead and inquired, "Who here is playing Celeste?" Some of the girls raised their hands, while others did not. Those who were playing Celeste turned their attention to those who were not. "What's Celeste?" a shorter high school girl asked with a puzzled expression. Another high school girl, also looking bewildered, added, "Yeah, is it an English game?" The high school girl who had played Celeste responded, saying, "It's the new video game by Kishin that's popular at SKES." Upon hearing this, the girls who were unfamiliar with Celeste nodded, but one of them asked, "So why is Aori-san inquiring about it?" The girls turned their attention to the cute high school girl who appeared to be their leader, Sawa Aori. They were well aware that Sawa Aori was the sister of the famous Sawa Arita, a high schooler who had achieved recognition as a video game reviewer in the school. It was her familial connection to a professional gamer that made the girls eager to follow her lead. Sawa Aori shook her head and announced, "I'm planning to create a club dedicated to the video game Celeste." The girls who had played Celeste were thrilled, and one of them exclaimed, "Really?" Sawa Aori nodded with a smile, and another girl familiar with the game asked, "What will our club be named?" Sawa Aori grinned as she replied, "It will be called the Celeste Madeliners." The girls who had played Celeste and become fans of the game expressed their excitement. However, the girls who hadn't played Celeste were confused about why some of their classmates were so enthusiastic and why Sawa Aori was forming a club dedicated to the game. One of the perplexed girls, who hadn't played Celeste, asked, Why is Aori-san creating a club for a video game like this, anyway?" Upon hearing this, many of the girls who had played Celeste responded, with one of them saying, "You probably haven't had the chance to experience Celeste yet, but you really should because it's an amazing game." Another girl chimed in, "That's absolutely true." After many girls shared their reasons, Sawa Aori stated, "That's correct. We're going to create a club dedicated to the video game Celeste so we can discuss it in more depth." "It's so exciting!" exclaimed one of the enthusiastic Celeste fans. The video game Celeste began to capture the attention of many after a week of its release on SKES and Game Boy. The game's unique gameplay and narrative took the gaming community by surprise, and players who had tried Celeste began to understand why the video game addicts had described it as ahead of its time. The sales of Celeste gradually increased, even surpassing the sales of the new Street Fighter game for SKES. Meanwhile, a video game that gained popularity among both kids and young adults was Pokémon. Some children were caught playing Pokémon on their Game Boys by their teachers, and even some young adults were spotted playing Pokémon by their bosses. Reports of the Pokémon craze were featured in various Japanese media outlets, while the negative effects of Kishin video games were once again subjected to public scrutiny. Tora and Suzuki were making considerable efforts to portray Kishin's video games in a negative light among the Japanese population. However, the popularity of the newly released Kishin video game consoles and titles continued to soar, not only in Japan but also across various Asian countries. The rest of the world could only envy the Japanese people, as SKES, Game Boy, and Kishin's latest video games were exclusively available in Japan. Beyond Asia, even in some countries and the USA, people could only watch as the Japanese enjoyed the latest offerings from Kishin. Americans watching Japanese gamers on television couldn't help but exclaim, "Darn it! How long do we have to wait to get our hands on these?" Some fans of the Pokémon anime couldn't help but express their frustration to Kishin, asking, "Why did they release it in Japan first? The USA should be the priority." New York, USA, Park Avenue. Blackstone Group Headquarters. Blackstone Group, an investment bank that invests in both private and public companies and provides financial services, holds a significant influence in Wall Street. The middle-aged man with blonde hair serving as the CEO of Blackstone Group was Howard Peterson. In a meeting with his executives about emerging companies worldwide, one of the executives mentioned, one of the private companies gaining recognition and establishing its brand presence is Kishin, a Japanese company. The executive paused and continued, "It's quite a promising company, don't you think?" The executives nodded in agreement, and CEO Howard Peterson chuckled as he commented, "Indeed. We once considered investing in that company, but now it has grown to such an extent that we may not be able to acquire shares at a favorable price." Another executive added, "True, but I believe it will be worth it, given their current dominance in the video game industry market." As the discussion continued, CEO Howard Peterson remarked, "However, I've heard that the founder and CEO of Kishin is quite ambitious. He paused to gauge the expressions of the executives and then suggested, maybe we should wait for Kishin's popularity to dip before investing, so we can secure a more advantageous price, don't you think? He wore a sly grin as he made this proposal. While not all the executives agreed with CEO Howard Peterson's approach, they couldn't deny that his suggestion held some merit. In response, some investment banks contemplated adopting a similar strategy to Howard Peterson's. While Kishin currently dominated the video game industry market, they understood that this might change in the future. Meanwhile, others sought to initiate negotiations with Kishin right away, drawing on their existing influence and reputation on Wall Street. Chapter 160, The Trend Continues. While Celeste is gaining popularity among video game players, Robert Johnson came to Japan, not for a business trip this time. He and his friend Anthony came to Japan to purchase an SKES and a Game Boy. Faced with yet another long line, Anthony couldn't help but complain, muttering, "Here we go again." As he glanced at the seemingly endless queue, Robert couldn't stifle a wry chuckle and remarked, "Well, SKES and Game Boy are incredibly popular, even in the United States. Just imagine what it's like for Japanese gamers who have direct access to Kishin's new products." Anthony had to concede, saying, "You're right. If it had been initially released in the US, we might be facing an even longer line." Robert couldn't help but let out a faint laugh and added, "Funny thing is, I heard that when Kishin first released SKES and Game Boy here in Japan, the lines were even longer than what we're experiencing now." Anthony simply shrugged, and after waiting for at least half an hour, they finally managed to enter the store. Finally! Anthony couldn't contain his excitement, celebrating with Robert as they purchased the SKES and Game Boy. The store was notably crowded. Robert and Anthony then headed to the video game section to pick out some games. As Robert leisurely explored the store, swiftly grabbing any Kishin video games for SKES and Game Boy he came across, Anthony, who was nearby, immediately called out, "Robert, come check this out." Robert heard Anthony's call and promptly joined him, inquiring, "What is it?" Anthony then presented the video game Celeste along with its special controller, unable to contain his excitement as he exclaimed, "Bro, have a look at this." He gestured toward the video game's title, which was displayed on the cover box featuring a red-haired girl in a snowy mountain setting, with the SKES and Kishin logos in the bottom left corner. Robert quickly responded, "Oh, it's a SKES video game. All right, let's get it." He reached for the box containing the Celeste video game. However, Anthony couldn't resist giving his friend's shoulder a gentle pat. Anthony remarked, "Dude, didn't you notice something off about it?" Robert furrowed his brows, clearly puzzled, and asked, "What's wrong?" Anthony couldn't help but shake his head, realizing that his friend hadn't noticed the issue. He pointed out, "Dude, this video game has an English title written in English alphabet." Robert couldn't help but scratch the back of his head, responding, "So, what's the issue?" Anthony, who had overheard Robert's comment, found himself at a loss for words and simply remarked, "Dude, this video game must have been influenced by America. Look at the snowy mountain on the cover, it could be Alaska, bro. And see, doesn't Celeste have a larger box compared to other SKES video game units?" Observing Anthony's misguided enthusiasm, Robert examined the Celeste video game box and calmly stated, "The box does appear larger, but that's because it includes its special controller." He pointed to a smaller Celeste video game box nearby and added, "The same Celeste game without the special controller comes in a smaller box, just like the other SKES video game units." With these words, Robert deflated his friend's misplaced pride. Upon taking a closer look, Anthony conceded, "Fair enough, dude. Let's just buy Celeste. I mean, it has an English title, so it's probably interesting, right?" Shifting the conversation, he continued, "Oh, look, a new The Legend of Zelda series." He then made his way to the shelves showcasing The Legend of Zelda video games, even spotting a tape of The Legend of Zelda anime. Robert could only shake his head in response to his friend's comments and continued his search for more video games. He soon came across Super Mario World and couldn't contain his excitement, promptly purchasing it. The Super Mario Bros. Series had always been a favorite of his, so there was no hesitation. After Robert and Anthony had each obtained their SKES and Game Boy, they left the store with smiles on their faces. As they walked through the crowd, they spotted other foreigners holding Kishin's logo emblazoned bags, suggesting that they too had purchased Kishin's new products. Anthony couldn't help but remark to Robert, "Are these other foreigners here just to buy Kishin's new products? They must have a lot of money." Robert, wearing a slight frown, retorted, "Idiot, aren't we doing the same thing?" He glanced at the Kishin bags in Anthony's hands and continued, "You've even bought multiple SKES and Game Boy units, along with a slew of video games. You're the one with too much money." Upon hearing Robert's comment, Anthony snorted and proudly displayed the several SKES and Game Boy units, along with numerous video game cartridges stored in one of the Kishin bags. He explained, "Dude, I'm not like you. I bought all these SKES and Game Boy units and their games, so I can sell them back home for double the price." He paused, smirking, and added, "I'm not wasting my money, I'm doubling it." Robert was left speechless upon hearing Anthony's reasoning and couldn't help but think, "Why didn't I do the same?" Observing the expression on Robert's face, Anthony couldn't resist feeling a sense of satisfaction as they made their way to their rented apartment. Once inside, Robert suggested, "We still have a week here, so we might as well play the new sequel of The Legend of Zelda." Anthony nodded in agreement and replied, "Well, I'll order some ramen first." He then asked, "Is it The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past?" Robert affirmed, I've actually already played The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link Back Home, so I'm quite excited to see the sequel." Anthony nodded and said, "Wait for me. I'll order the ramen first." Robert acknowledged as he unboxed the SKES and connected it to the television. Subsequently, he inserted the Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past video game cartridge into the cartridge slot of the SKES. Robert proceeded to unbox the Celeste video game. This video game had set him back at least 9,000 yen, and that was just for Celeste itself, excluding the special controller. Sighing, Robert commented, "This Celeste video game, along with its compatible controller, set me back about 12,800 yen. That's roughly $96. It's quite pricey." He then added with a smile, "But it better be worth it." As Robert waited for Anthony, his friend returned having ordered ramen. Robert initiated The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past on the SKES. Both Robert and Anthony were thoroughly impressed with the SKES's graphics and sound quality. In terms of performance and quality, it already surpassed Tora and Suzuki's 16-bit console. While Robert started the game, Anthony, holding the Super Metroid video game cartridge, suggested, "Let's play this one later." Robert reminded him, "Don't forget, we'll play Metroid 2 on the Game Boy first, then this one." Anthony agreed, "All right." Robert and Anthony welcomed the 2-minute introduction of The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, and after that, with Anthony offering suggestions, they dove into the game. Chapter 161, Plan of the Competitor. Robert played the video game The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Both Robert and Anthony were greatly impressed by the game's graphics. As Robert continued playing for several minutes, he guided Link outside the house, where a rainy night awaited him. However, as he attempted to guide his in-game character to the castle, they were halted by a guard. This left both Robert and Anthony puzzled, and Anthony inquired with confusion, "How do we enter the castle?" Robert, also feeling perplexed, decided to explore the area outside the castle. After some thought, he suggested, "Anthony, if you're a fan of Kishin video games, especially The Legend of Zelda, there must be a secret passage here to enter the castle." Anthony nodded and added, "You can try removing the grass to see if there's a way." Robert agreed, and he directed Link to the castle walls, where he noticed patches of grass. After diligently removing the grass for a while, Robert and Anthony finally made the discovery they were hoping for. With excitement, they exclaimed, "We've found it!" And Robert directed Link to enter the hidden passage. Inside the hidden passage, the scene shifted, and Link found himself in a dark hallway. Robert and Anthony noticed a blue-haired character nearby, who happened to be Link's uncle. Link, I didn't want you involved in this. I told you not to leave the house. Take my sword and shield and listen. You can focus power in the blade by holding the B button," Link's uncle's dialogue began. "Then release it using the secret technique handed down by our people." Finally, the dialogue concluded, "Link, you can do it. Save the princess. Zelda is your." With that, Robert's in-game character finally acquired the sword and shield. Anthony remarked, "Now you should be able to enter Hyrule Castle." Robert nodded and guided Link out of the well, making his way to the front gate of Hyrule Castle. Playing for several minutes, Link easily rescued Princess Zelda. Anthony couldn't help but exclaim, "Is it ending already?" However, Robert continued the game with a furrowed brow, and Princess Zelda began to follow Link. As time passed, Robert fought off mobs and successfully escorted Princess Zelda to the sanctuary. Just when they thought they had finished the game, the sage in the sanctuary tasked Link with visiting the village elder, a descendant of one of the 7 wise men. With this new quest, Robert and Anthony realized the game was far from over. After several hours of playing, Robert collected various items. Upon returning to the sanctuary, the sage informed him that Princess Zelda had been abducted again. Robert rushed to Hyrule Castle and witnessed the evil mage placing Princess Zelda on an altar, where she disappeared after a spell was cast. Anthony couldn't help but complain, "Why didn't Link just save her?" Robert responded with a wry smile, "I think it's essential to the plot." Continuing to play, Robert faced mobs and bosses, and as time passed, Ganon appeared in the final stage. This time, Robert was focused, while Anthony remarked, "It's the same boss as in the first game," as he enjoyed a slice of cake. Meanwhile, in Japan, those who had managed to complete The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past found themselves repeatedly drawn to the game, eager to experience it once more. Many players fell head over heels for the captivating graphics and intriguing story of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Its unique blend of RPG elements and an open-world gameplay style earned abundant praise from the gaming community. The impressive map of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and the diverse array of monsters to conquer held the attention of numerous gamers. Both children and young adults were entranced by the charm of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and reviews from various magazines hailed the game, even offering guidance on aspects like the ending and facing the final boss, Ganon. The mechanics of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, its expanded inventory slots for Link, the immersive RPG elements, the vast and intricate map, the rich lore, the graphics, and the mesmerizing soundtrack collectively positioned it at the pinnacle of RPG video games that beats the Tora and Suzuki 16-bit RPG video games. As a result, the sales of Tora and Suzuki in the video game sector began a gradual decline. Recognizing this, during a meeting of the Suzuki Group Board of Directors, Chairman Suzuki contemplated the situation and stated, "I believe we should consider discontinuing our involvement in the video game industry." In response, one of the directors expressed concern, "Why should we do that? Despite facing a downturn due to Kishin's latest products and video games, we can manage." Another director chimed in, "That's a valid point. We've already reaped profits from our ventures in the video game industry." Chairman Suzuki cast a serious gaze at the board of directors as he continued, "But take a look at the financial charts. We are losing money." He paused and added, "Moreover, we have already amassed a substantial fortune in this industry. If we sell the remaining SES units and video games at a reduced price, we will still turn a profit even if we cease production. The board of directors exchanged glances as they deliberated. Vice Chairman Ctto chimed in with a chuckle, "You can certainly make that suggestion, Chairman Shiro, especially considering that Kishin is your youngest son's company." Upon hearing this, all eyes turned to Vice Chairman Ctto and then to Chairman Shiro. Sensing that everyone was attentively listening, Vice Chairman Ctto continued with a sly grin, "Perhaps your real intention is to shut down our video game sector to allow your son's company, Kishin, to maintain its dominance in the market by reducing the number of competitors." Chairman Shiro fell silent, acknowledging the truth in his brother's words. Nevertheless, he reiterated, "Our primary focus is not video games. It's motor research and cellular phones that have been our most profitable sectors." As the board of directors engaged in a subdued discussion, Vice Chairman Ctto interjected, "Indeed, but we shouldn't disregard the potential of the video game industry." While the board of directors observed the exchange between the two brothers, one of the directors spoke up, "I have a suggestion." Upon hearing the director's proposal, everyone's attention turned to him. Chairman Shiro inquired, "What's your suggestion?" The director nodded in Vice Chairman Ctto's direction and explained, "Why don't we consider a partnership with Tora in video game consoles and video game research to compete with Kishin?" Upon hearing the director's words, the idea was met with approval by most, although Chairman Shiro frowned in response. On the other hand, Vice Chairman Ctto wore a wide grin. The collaboration with Tora was, in fact, Vice Chairman Ctto's idea, but he had the director propose it to prevent Chairman Shiro from harboring resentment toward him. Chapter 162, Street Fighter II. Before long, the video game that unexpectedly captured the attention of gamers was Celeste. As a result, fans of Celeste rushed to buy Madeline stuffed toys and figurines. A few weeks passed, and Tora and Suzuki found themselves struggling to keep up with Kishin. Consequently, they began contemplating the idea of forming a partnership. Meanwhile, the video game sectors of Tora and Suzuki continued to perform well in the foreign market. However, it was only a matter of time before Kishin introduced their latest products through their established foreign distribution partners. In Toshima Ward, Tokyo, Japan, at Kishin headquarters, Oryo Masayoshi was constantly in touch with Shin about investment banks showing interest in their company. But Shin simply said, "Ignore them." With that, Oryo Masayoshi felt helpless as he disregarded the investment banks attempting to establish connections and potential investments on Wall Street. As time passed, other investment banks began to notice that Kishin was consistently ignoring them, leading to feelings of insult. In Hollywood, film critics started to criticize Kishin Pictures' film project Jurassic Park to the point where Kishin Pictures received numerous complaints from film enthusiasts, urging them to halt the project and to not play around too much in the film industry. Meanwhile, in the midst of these events in the USA, in Toshima Ward, Tokyo, Japan, inside Kishin's building, in Shin's office, Myra remarked, "The Pokemon fanbase has become increasingly evident as sales of Pokemon Red and Blue video games have surged." Shin responded with a smile, "I believe it would be a great idea to establish a Pokemon-themed restaurant." Myra enthusiastically nodded and said, "That sounds like a fantastic plan." Shin continued thoughtfully, "And I also think it's time to organize a competition for Street Fighter II, the World Warrior." Myra agreed, adding, "Indeed, while it may not have reached the popularity of games like Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, or Celeste, it has been gaining the attention of many players." Shin nodded and, with a chuckle, suggested, "Maybe we should offer some prize money to motivate them, don't you think?" Meanwhile, as Kishin's other video games gradually gained popularity, one particular game became a clear favorite among young teenagers, Street Fighter II, the World Warrior. After school, a young man named Mayata Amaya invited his friends over to play SKES at his house. While walking to his house, Mayata Amaya conversed with his friends, saying, "I really like Ken as a character." One of his friends agreed, Ryu is my favorite. Then another young man named Mizu, with a playful laugh, said, you two are so predictable. My favorite is Chun-Li. When Mayata Amaya heard Mizu's comment, some of his friends agreed, while others teased Mizu, saying, you're just a pervert, Mizu-san. Mizu, feeling insulted, retorted, me? A pervert? Humph. I'm a romantic, don't mistake me for a pervert. Mayata Amaya simply nodded and said, all right, all right. After a while, they arrived at Mayata Amaya's house and then entered his room. Mizu looked around and asked, Amaya-san, do you have any magazines I could borrow? All eyes were on Mayata Amaya, who seemed momentarily speechless. He finally hesitated, saying, I'll lend you one later, but let's play Street Fighter first. Reluctantly, Mizu nodded and replied, all right. Mayata Amaya then connected the SKES to the television as his friends eagerly awaited their turn. They didn't have their own SKES, which was why they occasionally gathered at Mayata Amaya's house to enjoy SKES video games. Once the SKES and television were up and running, Mayata Amaya inserted the Street Fighter video game into the SKES cartridge slot. After a brief wait, the video game finally loaded, and they all fixed their gaze on the television. The title Street Fighter II trademark appeared, with the subtitle The World Warrior below it. The main menu presented options like Game Start, vs Battle, and Option Mode. Mizu eagerly suggested, let me have the first round and play against Amaya-san. He plugged in another SKES controller into the SKES console. Mayata Amaya agreed and selected vs Battle. The screen transitioned to a world map, with flags representing different countries, including the USA, Japan, India, Brazil, China, and even the USSR. Mayata Amaya, being player 1, had the first pick of character and chose Ken, matching his nationality with the USA flag. Mizu, with a mischievous grin, selected Chun-Li, representing China. Others observed Mizu's expression, and the idea of delivering a satisfying punch to his face crossed their minds. On the screen, the yellow-haired Ken and the elegant Chun-Li appeared, separated by the letters VS. All right, let's get started. Mizu exclaimed, filled with excitement. The video game commenced, and Mayata Amaya and Mizu engaged in a fierce battle. Both of them furiously pressed the controller buttons. Oh, you can't defeat me! Mizu boasted while skillfully maneuvering Chun-Li to dodge Ken's attacks from Mayata Amaya. Mayata Amaya snorted and retorted, let's see if you can dodge this. Hadouken! Mizu skillfully guided Chun-Li to evade the attack and laughed, saying, haha, now let's see if you can dodge this kick. Mayata Amaya failed to control Ken in time, resulting in Chun-Li landing a kick to Ken's face. In response, Mayata Amaya took control of Ken and retaliated with a Hadouken. However, Mizu skillfully maneuvered Chun-Li to jump and evade the Hadouken. As time passed, the onlookers watched Mayata Amaya and Mizu engage in fierce battles within Street Fighter II, The World Warrior. Ultimately, Mizu emerged victorious in the first round, with Chun-Li's character jubilantly celebrating the win. Ha 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 ha! Mizu chuckled in delight as he claimed victory. Mayata Amaya, with a snort, remarked, don't get too excited, there's another round to go. After some time, as Mayata Amaya and Mizu continued to play, Mayata Amaya managed to win the game, securing 2 rounds against Mizu. Mizu felt speechless and indignant, exclaiming, let's have another round. However, Mayata Amaya's other friends intervened, with one of them saying, hey, it's my turn, Mizu-san. Reluctantly, Mizu handed over the Player 2 controller to his friend, feeling unwilling to do so. He noticed Mayata Amaya flexing, which irked him slightly. Chapter 163, Upcoming Competition Tournament. In Tokyo, Japan, within a certain household, a slender 16-year-old youth was engrossed in playing Street Fighter II, The World Warrior on his Super Kishin entertainment system, SKES, in the family's living room. His dexterous fingers danced across the controller, guiding his in-game character with impressive speed and precision. The relentless action unfolded on the screen. Unexpectedly, a middle-aged man entered the living room. He glanced at the screen and sighed, "Junpei, you're wasting your time on video games again." The 16-year-old, named Junpei, continued playing, seemingly unfazed by his father's presence. The middle-aged man took a seat on the sofa, positioning himself beside Junpei. He turned to his son and urged, "Turn it off, I want to catch up on the news." Junpei, torn between his game and his father's request, replied with a hint of frustration, "Just let me finish this round, Dad." His father, now visibly irritated, retorted, "Are you seriously defying your own father?" Having no other option, Junpei swiftly powered off the SKES and disconnected it from the TV. He changed the channel to the news, complying with his father's request. The middle-aged man nodded in satisfaction and advised, "Good. You shouldn't spend all day playing pointless video games. Go outside and enjoy some fresh air." Speechless, Junpei left the house and made his way to the local arcades. As he arrived, he noticed a crowd gathered around a poster. Curious, Junpei approached the group, but the poster remained obscured by the people. He tapped the shoulder of a nearby individual and inquired, "What's going on here?" The man Junpei approached frowned but still responded, "I heard that Kishin is organizing a Street Fighter II competition." Junpei's eyes widened in surprise and excitement coursed through his veins. "Really?" he exclaimed. The man, still puzzled by Junpei's reaction, furrowed his brows and asked, "What's got you so excited, man?" Junpei simply shook his head and replied, "Nothing." As the crowd dispersed from around the poster, Junpei eagerly approached for a closer look. To his amazement, Kishin was indeed organizing a competition, not only for Street Fighter II, the World Warrior, but also for Tetris, featuring two-player matches, just like the Street Fighter II competition. Moreover, they were extending their competitive spirit to games like Super Mario Bros., Super Mario World, and The Legend of Zelda. The top scorer in any of these video games had a chance to win a grand prize of 1 million yen, mirroring the rewards in other competitive video games. Given that some of the renowned old 8-bit video games had been remade and were now available in 16-bit, the competition was shaping up to be exciting. Participants had the option to submit their scores to Kishin either manually by visiting a Kishin branch or electronically by connecting their SKES to the Internet, thanks to Kishin's built-in Ethernet capabilities. Scores submitted online would automatically appear on Kishin's leaderboard. Alternatively, they could aim for high scores on the spot during the competition tournament at Kishin's location in Toshima Ward, Tokyo, or at various venues across Japan. Junpei, with his proficiency in video games like Street Fighter, Tetris, and Super Mario Bros., felt a surge of excitement as he absorbed the details from the poster. Seeing this opportunity, Junpei couldn't contain his excitement at the prospect of earning rewards for his gaming skills. On another note, while construction of Pokémon cafes and restaurants was ongoing in various parts of Japan, it seemed like the projects wouldn't be completed anytime soon. Nevertheless, the Pokémon video game's popularity continued to soar. In a recently established gaming hub run by a local entrepreneur, several people had already gathered, engrossed in their Game Boy consoles while playing Pokémon. Amid the friendly competition, one player suggested, "I really like your Pokémon. How about we trade?" As he held up a Game Boy link cable. A player in his 20s scoffed at the proposal, replying, "You expect me to trade my prized Pokémon for a Caterpie? You're dreaming." The 30-year-old player, seemingly prepared for the rejection, countered, "What if I sweeten the deal with 20,000 yen in exchange? How does that sound?" The man in his 20s snorted in response, stating, "You're dreaming. There's no way I'd trade my precious Jolteon for a mere 20,000 yen. He proudly showcased his Pokémon, his head held high. Suddenly, a 10-year-old boy, sporting a Pokemon cap, chimed in, "Hey, mister, you've got a cool Pokemon there." Perplexed, the two adults turned their attention to the young boy, who continued, "But it's quite a common Pokemon, you know. I've got 2 of those in my collection." The revelation left the two adults and even some onlookers taken aback. The man in his 20s exclaimed, "No way." He then turned to the 30-year-old man, who wore an equally surprised expression, and remarked, "That kid must be making it up." However, the young boy, sporting a furrowed brow, held up his Game Boy and confidently stated, "I'm not making it up. I've got 2 Jolteons, a Gengar, a Lapras, and a Snorlax in my collection." Upon hearing the boy's words and witnessing his game collection on the screen of his Game Boy, the two adults and the bystanders were struck with amazement, collectively thinking, "It's real." Upon hearing the 30-year-old man's offer, he stepped closer to the boy and proposed, "Kid, if you're willing to part with all your Pokemon, I'll give you 30,000 yen. Not to be outdone, the man in his 20s swiftly interjected, "Hold on, young man. I'll buy your entire Pokemon collection for 40,000 yen. The bystanders in the hub were left in shock, wondering if these adults were genuinely prepared to spend such money on Pokemon. Meanwhile, the young boy simply glanced at the two men and calmly responded, 30,000 yen? 40,000 yen? It doesn't even match my allowance, so I think I'll pass. What? The onlookers couldn't help but exclaim when they heard the 10-year-old's nonchalant reply. Just as the two men were about to protest, a new figure approached the young boy. The man addressed him, "Taku, it's time to go. Your mother is waiting." The man was none other than Takusa Yamamoto, the current CEO of Nintendo, having taken over the position after his father's retirement. The 30-year-old man turned to Takusa and inquired, "Is this your son?" while gesturing toward the 10-year-old boy. Takusa, meeting the man's gaze, nodded and replied, "Yes, he is. Is there a problem?" The 30-year-old man quickly shook his head, muttering, "No, no problem." As the people watched, Takusa and his 10-year-old son entered a luxurious car parked outside the hub. It became evident to everyone that the boy came from a wealthy family. The man in his 20s let out a sigh of pity, remarking, "What a missed opportunity." The 30-year-old man nodded in agreement, saying, "Indeed." Chapter 164, Tournament. While in South Korea on March 12, 1992, an presidential candidates debate was in place. At the Samstar headquarters, Han Woon-suk, the current chairman of the Samstar Group, was engaged in a discussion with his family. Han Woon-suk, a middle-aged man, expressed, "Once Man-won wins the presidential election, Japanese companies that don't agree to sell exclusively in the South Korean market through us will have to bid farewell." Han Woon-suk's younger brother, Han Myung-ki, added, "I've heard that a Japanese company named Kishin is making significant strides with their latest products in the Japanese market, even beating bigger players like Tora and Suzuki in the video game industry." Han Jun-sang, the elder son of Han Woon-suk, cautioned, "Their later products' entry into our market could pose considerable challenges." Han Woon-suk nodded and emphasized, "Exactly. That's why it's crucial for Man-won to win." His brothers and elder son nodded in agreement. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Japan, intense competition for the highest score leaderboard in Kishin's video games, such as Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda, was taking place in various cities across Tokyo. The main tournament took place in Toshima Ward, Tokyo, Japan, and it was the most bustling location since it was home to Kishin's main headquarters and where the founder and CEO of Kishin currently resided. This is also where the Street Fighter II, the World Warrior and Tetris competitions were being held. The tournament in Toshima Ward, Tokyo, Japan, was hosted at the Tokyo Metropolitan Gymnasium, a large venue capable of accommodating a substantial audience. Meanwhile, Shin found himself backstage at the tournament venue. To be honest, Shin felt somewhat helpless, after his public reveal, it had become increasingly challenging to move around freely without drawing attention. Shin had come to realize that he was constantly recognized when outside. He couldn't help but wonder if he had inadvertently become a celebrity, given his current level of popularity. Outside, a large crowd had already gathered, eagerly watching the stage on the LED big screens, which were continuously showcasing Kishin video games. The moment was finally orchestrated, and then a countdown appeared on the screen: 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's welcome Kishin's founder and CEO, Shinro Suzuki. Shin made a grand entrance, slipping through the sliding huge LED screen, and the players below erupted in excitement, shouting, "Woo! Amazing! Marry me!" The crowd expressed their adoration as Shin stepped forward, holding a microphone, and said, "Hello, players." The cheers from the crowd continued, and Shin chuckled wryly at the enthusiastic response before adding, "I've witnessed how Kishin's video games have become so popular that they've even pushed 2 of our competitors to the brink of bankruptcy." When Shin made that statement, the crowd responded with a soft laughter. While it was unrealistic for big corporations like Tora and Suzuki to go bankrupt, it was undoubtedly a significant financial setback for them. With a mischievous grin, Shin continued, "Soon, we'll dominate the world, leaving these 2 imitators competitors in the video game industry far behind." The crowd erupted with excitement, feeling a sense of connection to Kishin's success, especially those who had been fans since the company's early days. Amid the cheering, Shin humbly remarked, "But enough of my boasting." He paused, wearing a smile, and continued, "I'm here because I personally initiated a competition tournament for Kishin's video games, with a special focus on Street Fighter II, The World Warrior." As Shin spoke, the players who had signed up for the competition displayed a serious demeanor. Among them were Mayata Amaya, Junpei Nakamoto, and several others who had entered the tournament. On the stage, Shin proudly presented 2 arcade machines and announced, "These are the arcade machines that the competing players will use." Kishin's workers then unveiled several more arcade machines, all concealed under wide red cloths. With an enthusiastic tone, Shin added, "But before that, we'll kick things off with a Tetris competition. After a week of intense competition, the winner will walk away with a 1 million prize and the coveted Tetris Best Player trophy." The crowd erupted in cheers, and shortly after, the players who had registered for the Tetris tournament competition made their appearance. Some individuals in the crowd gasped in surprise upon realizing that the majority of Tetris competitors were from the older generation, including middle-aged participants, with the youngest among them being in their 20s or 30s. As the Tetris rounds were relatively short, the audience could enjoy watching the head-to-head battles between the 2 Tetris players each time. With Shin's introduction completed, the Kishin-employed commentator or host took over the role and welcomed the players. 2 players took their seats at their respective arcade machines, and the Tetris video game was already set up and ready to go. People observed with anticipation as the Tetris round finally commenced, with 2 middle-aged players engaged in a spirited battle. As time passed, the Tetris battle unfolded, and those who had initially harbored doubts about the excitement of a Tetris or any video game competition found themselves cheering enthusiastically as the 2 Tetris players engaged in a thrilling match. What truly added to the excitement was the skilled commentary provided by the commentator. "Oh! Edo-san managed to score at least 1. But Kai-san is catching up. Wait, did Edo-san just pull off a combo?" exclaimed the Japanese commentator as the Tetris players' intense battle played out on the massive LED screen. This captivating commentary drew the attention of the audience, and many were now engrossed in the game, eagerly anticipating its outcome. Some skilled Tetris players among the audience began to regret their decision not to sign up for the tournament. Initially, they had thought it would be dull, but now, with the game looking so entertaining and the crowd's enthusiastic cheers alongside the lively commentator, they realized they had been mistaken. They couldn't help but imagine themselves on the stage, competing in Tetris and triumphing over their opponents, a feeling that promised exhilaration. Meanwhile, as the Tetris competition unfolded, Idori Tanaka sat in the audience, engrossed in the round of Tetris while casually munching on popcorn. He mumbled, "This Shinro really is something, to come up with such an intriguing concept." He gazed at the cheering crowd and the excitement filling the venue, finding himself genuinely impressed by Shinro. Idori had usually only held admiration for his father and the wealthiest individuals in the United States, but now he couldn't help but admire Shinro, even if he wasn't among the top 10 richest people on Earth. Chapter 165, Recession. The Kishin tournament spanned several days, during which a 30-year-old man managed to secure victory as the Tetris best player, earning a substantial 1 million yen prize. Simultaneously, in the Street Fighter II, the World Warrior Tournament, Junpei Nakamoto emerged as the champion, also claiming a 1 million yen prize. This event garnered significant media coverage, with the highest scores achieved in various Kishin classic video games leading to cash rewards for the top 1 to 3 players. Meanwhile, Junpei Nakamoto's triumph in the tournament surprised his father, who was watching TV in disbelief, exclaiming, "Junpei actually won 1 million yen." He had initially thought his son was wasting time playing video games, and he might have disposed of the SKES and its games if not for his own interest in gaming. Now, witnessing his son's competition victory, he was genuinely astonished. During a Tora Corporation conference meeting, President Taro Ikeda remarked on the potential for increased sales of Kishin products following the tournament. While video games weren't their primary focus in the business industry chain, they couldn't ignore the decline in their video game sector. Consequently, many attendees considered a partnership with Suzuki Electronics to enhance their video game consoles and games through collaborative research. As Kishin's success reached new heights in Japan and they prepared to launch their latest products in foreign markets, Japan unexpectedly faced an economic challenge. The business world in Japan, regardless of their size, had mixed reactions to the Bank of Japan's announcement of lowering interest rates. This move was a response to the Japanese asset price bubble, driven by excessive lending from Japanese banks. The business world of Japan, whether large or small, responded with mixed emotions when the Bank of Japan announced its decision to lower interest rates. This move was prompted by the Japanese asset price bubble, which had been fueled by excessive lending from Japanese banks. Japanese media coined the term Heisei recession to describe this economic downturn, which painted a bleak picture of 1990s Japan. Unemployment rates rose, and wages remained stagnant, leading to the downsizing or bankruptcy of many Japanese companies. This loss of confidence in both the Japanese government and the economy became widespread. Not long before this recession, a significant number of Japanese people had confidence in their economy. They were thriving in Asia, surpassing South Korea and China in economic terms, and enjoying a high standard of living. The video game industry, with Kishin, a leading Japanese company, had contributed to this confidence, although many didn't boast about it. People had faith in their nation, its economy, and the government. However, when the Heisei recession began with the Bank of Japan's announcement of economic struggles, that confidence began to wane. However, with the onset of the Heisei recession and the Bank of Japan's announcement of economic struggles, this confidence began to wane. Small businesses in particular felt the weight of worry as they witnessed the downturn in the economy. The onset of this economic recession took many by surprise. Japan had weathered the well-known Japanese bubble, but the impending recession caught them off guard. The impact was felt not only by small businesses but also by larger corporations. Nevertheless, the Japanese government had already begun preparations to address this economic challenge. They were aware, though, that it was a formidable task. The Heisei recession was unlike anything they had encountered before, characterized by prolonged economic stagnation, making it uncertain when Japan's economy would recover. Amidst the turmoil, several major banks, including the Hokkaido Takashoku Bank, the Long-Term Credit Bank of Japan, and Nippon Credit Bank, faced failure. Foreign media outlets extensively covered Japan's economic struggles, leading many countries to reflect on the vulnerability of even economically prosperous nations to such shocks. Meanwhile, at Kishin headquarters, Shin sat in the central chair of the conference room. Even Kishin wasn't immune to the effects of the economic recession. Many executives and employees within the company harbored concerns about the future. Despite Kishin's apparent dominance, the economic shock had significantly shaken their confidence in both the country's economy and their own company. They grappled with the idea that, no matter how robust their company might be, they could soon face substantial economic and financial challenges. Observing the worry etched on the faces of the executives in the meeting, Shin, seated with his arms crossed, spoke up, "There's no point in dwelling on these worries." A pause followed as he noticed all the executives looking at him, their attention piqued. Shin continued, "We've already established a formidable brand presence. We've penetrated markets in other countries." He emphasized his point by slamming his hand on the table, exclaiming, "We've achieved a global reach." Upon hearing this, the executives experienced a boost in morale. When one of the executives inquired about the financial adjustments appropriate for the current situation, Shin responded, "Simply trim any unnecessary expenses. Streamline our operations to cut costs, but ensure we don't reduce our employees' wages." This response surprised the executives, and one of them remarked, "Other corporations are already slashing employee wages due to the economic recession. Why shouldn't we do the same?" Shin offered a confident smile and replied, "We're not like any other company." He rose from his seat, resting his hands on the table, and continued, "We are Kishin." A brief pause followed as he locked eyes with the executives and declared, "We'll not only survive this recession but emerge even stronger. We'll lead the world, for we are a global company with ambitions that set us apart from ordinary companies." His voice resonated throughout the conference room, leaving the executives somewhat stunned. Sensing lingering doubts among his team, Shin concluded, "You are all dismissed." The executives nodded and, one by one, left the conference room. Shin gazed thoughtfully out of the window, murmuring, "It seems that the release of the Kishin Rebolt cellular phone will need to be expedited." He pondered the cellular phone project, a joint effort between Kishin and Rebolt Technology, which bore a striking resemblance to Nokia from his previous life. To be candid, Shin was also caught off guard by the economic shock in Japan, and he wouldn't deny that his bank accounts were affected. When the Japanese banks suffered due to the economic recession, his balances dwindled as well. While Shin didn't obsess over his wealth, a significant amount of money had been lost due to this economic downturn. In hindsight, he wished he had secured some of his funds in a Swiss bank account if he had known earlier. Considering this, he was already contemplating how to navigate this challenging period, particularly now that Myra was pregnant. While he didn't necessarily need to be extraordinarily wealthy for her pregnancy, Shin wanted to ensure that Myra didn't experience excessive stress due to the situation. Chapter 166, Anti-Piracy. While Japan's economy was mired in a recession, in South Korea on March 18, 1992, a legislative election was underway. The Party for Peace and Democracy, supported by Han Woon-suk and several chaebols, thrived and emerged victorious in the election. This success led to the chaebols' satisfaction, and the process of expelling certain Japanese companies from the country was underway, given that the winning legislative party held a predominantly critical stance towards Japan. South Koreans still sought reparations from Japan for the damage inflicted on their country. Consequently, in 1992, while Japan grappled with an economic recession, South Korea experienced a more prosperous economy. This boosted people's confidence in their government, economy, and nation. As time progressed, Kishin garnered excitement in the United States, with Americans eagerly anticipating the release of their new products. The SKES was scheduled for release in the United States on June 18, 1992. "I can't wait for Pokémon!" exclaimed a man donning a Pokémon cap while conversing with his friends. Meanwhile, the filming of Jurassic Park had already concluded, leaving only CGI and motion capture work remaining. On June 1, 1992, a subsidiary company of Kishin specializing in CGI and motion capture took on the Jurassic Park project. Despite some skepticism within Hollywood and critical voices questioning Kishin's project, many had already foreseen its failure even before its release. Meanwhile, Kishin's latest products made their way into several countries in Asia, but they faced an obstacle in South Korea. At Kishin's headquarters, Shin found himself quite perplexed. However, one of Kishin's executives provided an explanation for the delay in releasing their latest products to South Korean retail distributors. It was due to the stance of the Legislative Party in South Korea that was opposed to Japanese companies, which unfortunately affected Kishin's ability to introduce their widely popular SKES and Game Boy in the South Korean market. Shin couldn't help but feel disappointed, as he recognized the potential of the South Korean market. However, he understood that it was not within his control to challenge a country or its government. While this situation unfolded, the construction of Pokémon restaurants and cafes in several cities in Tokyo, all under Kishin's electronic company, had been completed. These establishments quickly gained immense popularity in Tokyo, particularly among Pokémon fans. They flocked to these locations with their Game Boys, treating them as hubs where they could trade Pokémon and share tips with fellow enthusiasts. Kishin's revenue, initially impacted by the economic recession, began a slow and gradual recovery. As for other companies, both small and large, some managed to bounce back, while others continued to struggle due to the shifting economic landscape. Nevertheless, the Japanese people remained resilient and optimistic about the future, despite the economic setbacks they faced. Whether they will recover from this economic recession depends largely on their own efforts. If they work diligently enough, they can gradually regain their footing and continue to function as a cohesive society. Businesses are making valiant efforts to survive during these challenging times. Tora and Suzuki, who have already weathered a significant decline in the Japanese video game industry, are still doing well with their products selling strongly in foreign markets. They have also managed to make sales in Japan by offering their 16-bit console at a significantly reduced price. While this decision resulted in some financial losses for Tora and Suzuki, the increased demand for their affordable consoles also boosted sales of their video games. In the case of Kishin, with the success of the SKES, many people who owned 8-bit video games realized that they could trade them in at Kishin's physical stores for a discounted price on Kishin's video games. This prompted numerous individuals with Kishin 8-bit video games to exchange them for new Kishin 16-bit video games, whether they were remade or entirely new, at a reduced cost. However, amidst Kishin's prosperity, the issue of pirated video games began to surface in other parts of Asia. At Kishin headquarters, when Shin learned of this situation, despite the executives' annoyance towards the unscrupulous companies responsible for pirated Kishin video games, Shin simply smiled and reassured them, saying, "Don't worry. You might not be aware, but the 16-bit SKES comes equipped with anti-piracy measures. Those who purchased these pirated video games will soon realize that they've wasted their money because they won't be able to play them." Upon hearing this, the executives couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. In a particular Asian country, Ronaldo had recently acquired a pirated Kishin video game from a street vendor. He inserted the pirated Super Mario World video game into his newly purchased SKES. Hehe, it's a good thing piracy exists. Everything is much more convenient and affordable, Ronaldo remarked with a smile as he turned on the television and powered up his SKES. To his delight, the title screen for Super Mario World appeared, and Ronaldo felt exhilarated that the pirated video game was working. Sigh, what a relief! The pirated Super Mario World actually works. Ronaldo sighed in relief and then started playing the video game. What Ronaldo was unaware of was that the SKES employed a checksum as a security measure. A checksum is a unique code generated for each video game cartridge. When the console is powered on, it verifies the checksum of the cartridge to ensure it's a legitimate game. If the checksum doesn't match, the console may refuse to play the game. Furthermore, the SKES incorporates additional software-based anti-piracy measures. For instance, some games check for specific patterns in the game's memory to detect counterfeit cartridges. If a counterfeit is detected, the game won't run. Ronaldo remained content, as he encountered no issues while playing Super Mario World. He was currently engrossed in the game's introductory segment. As Ronaldo delved into playing Super Mario World, he soon encountered an unexpected occurrence. The video game appeared to hang, and suddenly the screen froze. Ronaldo felt a mix of confusion and nervousness. The screen transitioned to a small scene featuring Mario in a castle and green Luigi jumping onto a bomb detonator. As the line connected the bomb to the castle, there was a kaboom comic effect, turning Mario black due to the explosion. Subsequently, Luigi stood up, and text materialized on the screen, declaring, "Pirating is illegal." Below this message was another line stating, "Please report this stolen software immediately." Along with further instructions, "Please call this number XXX for additional support." The text concluded with, "Please turn off the console now." Following this, the screen went black once more, revealing an image against the dark background. It featured the three characters, Mario, Luigi, and the princess, positioned in the middle. Below them were the words, "Criminals cannot play." When Ronaldo saw this, he found himself momentarily speechless and bewildered. It left him feeling deterred and, in a sense, spooked. Sighing, Ronaldo muttered, "I shouldn't have bought this pirated video game." His sentiments were echoed by others who had ventured into trying pirated Kishin video games, all sharing a sense of regret. Chapter 167, PC Expo. In Shin's new mansion, he gently caressed Myra's hair and said, "You should rest, I've already informed your university, so you shouldn't push yourself too hard." He observed Myra still studying in the study room. Myra nodded but replied, "It doesn't matter. It's said that it's healthy for women to stay active during pregnancy." Shin nodded and added, "But it's not healthy to be stressed." While discussing with Myra, Shin's latest Suzuki phone beeped. Before leaving for the garden, Shin kissed Myra on the forehead and answered the call. He said, "Mr. Chandler, how are you doing?" The person calling Shin was Albert Chandler, the CEO of Rebold Technology. Shin and Albert discussed the release of their joint mobile phone product, the Kishin Rebold Series 1, which had a design similar to the Nokia 2110. Though it might not have looked very impressive, compared to the bulky phones from Tora, Suzuki, or Motorola, it was already quite slim and stylish for its time. While discussing the exhibition of the product at the upcoming PC Expo, Albert concluded the call. Shin examined his current Suzuki phone more closely. It was bulky, the keyboard was relatively hard, although it was considered comfortable for a cell phone at this time. The size, while already considered small for the era, would still create a noticeable bulge when placed in a pocket, especially with the antenna protruding. On June 16, 1992, in the USA, both at Kishin physical stores and retail locations partnered with Kishin, long lines had already formed in front of these establishments, extending down the sidewalk. Some dedicated customers, like the Japanese, had even set up tents to secure their spot in line for the latest Kishin products. Media outlets covered this remarkable scene for their viewers. A reporter approached a chubby man who was sipping coffee while proudly surveying the long line behind him. The BBC News reporter greeted the man and inquired, "How are you doing, sir? We noticed that you are the first in line at the Kishin store and have even set up a tent. Can you share your enthusiasm for Kishin?" The chubby man, sipping his coffee while seated, responded while gazing at the reporter, "I'm here to get my Pokémon." The reporter was momentarily speechless and asked again, Sir, is there more to your story?" The chubby man scratched the back of his long, curly hair, "And I also can't wait to dive into The Legend of Zelda." The reporter continued holding the microphone, seemingly waiting for additional insights, but the chubby man simply looked back and said, "That's about it. What more do you want me to say? Isn't my reason enough?" The BBC reporter found no rebuttal and turned to interview the man behind the chubby man, who was second in line and equally prepared with a tent, even cooking some eggs. "Why are you so enthusiastic about waiting for 2 more days for Kishin's latest products to be released?" the reporter inquired. The man cooking the eggs responded, "I just want to play the new Kishin video games, that's all." The BBC News reporters couldn't help but feel somewhat baffled by these gamers, but they refrained from expressing their opinions. One of the reporters stated, "As you can see, Kishin video games have sparked quite a craze in several states across the United States. One of the reasons for this phenomenon is the Kishin Game Boy, along with their immensely popular Pokémon animation, which has been adapted into Game Boy video games." He paused before adding, "Additionally, Kishin's entertainment music artists have already gained popularity in the music industry with their catchy and otherworldly songs." Reporters from other media outlets reached similar conclusions. As Kishin's popularity continued to soar and the demand for their products increased, Shin made the decision to secure additional loans from banks to meet market demands. However, he opted to borrow more from Japanese banks and reduced his borrowing from US banks, adhering to the agreement between Shin and the government's financial sector. Finally, on June 18, 1992, SKES and Game Boy, along with their lineup of video games, made their debut in the US market. The first customers to purchase Kishin's latest products at each respective Kishin physical store were rewarded with complimentary accessories or free video games. With the release of Kishin's latest products, within a matter of days, Kishin's sales reached an all-time high in the video game sector in the USA. Retailers such as Target, Kmart, and several of Kishin's partners, who initially had doubts about Kishin, now breathed a sigh of relief as they witnessed the surge in Kishin's sales. Meanwhile, Walmart, which exclusively sold Tora and Suzuki video game consoles and games, experienced an all-time low in sales. Seeing the decline of Tora and Suzuki, the CEO of Walmart reached out to Kishin with the intent of distributing their popular products as well. Slowly but surely, Tora and Suzuki were being sidelined in the video game industry. Many of their devoted fans began to worry about the future of these two companies. Despite discovering that Tora and Suzuki had wrongly taken credit for being the saviors of the video game industry, their consoles and games still held cherished memories for their loyal users. Simultaneously, on June 22, 1992, at the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center in New York City, the PC Expo unfolded. Esteemed brands like IBM, Apple, Oracle, Dell, Intel, Cisco Systems, Tora, Suzuki, and Motorola were all present to showcase their upcoming products. Even renowned CEOs such as Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Larry Ellison, and others graced this tech exhibition. These individuals were the contemporary counterparts to the famous and wealthy CEOs in Shin's previous life. The convention center buzzed with people eagerly exploring the latest tech products from their favorite companies. In contrast, at Rebold Technologies' modest booth space, there wasn't an overwhelming amount of attention. Albert Chandler remained patient as his team set up their newest products for visitors to explore later. Media outlets diligently surveyed the venue, highlighting the most intriguing and cutting-edge offerings from various companies. Albert Chandler held out hope that his booth space would catch the media's attention, as it would greatly benefit their marketing efforts and reduce the need for extensive promotional spending through the exhibition and media coverage. Chapter 168, KRS-One Phone. In the PC Expo of 1992, while it was a fantastic opportunity for Rebold Technologies to showcase their groundbreaking new cellular phone, it also provided an opportunity for Albert Chandler and his company to connect with potential customers and partners. During the early 1990s, the computer and electronics industries were increasingly globalized. While it was still uncommon for some families to have a computer in certain countries, in first world countries like the USA, Europe, and select Asian countries such as Japan and South Korea, computers were already widely used for various tasks, greatly benefiting many companies' workspaces. PC Expo served as an excellent platform to interact with potential customers and partners from around the world. Japanese companies like Tora, Suzuki, and Mitsubishi, along with South Korean companies like Samstar, and other international firms, presented their latest technological products at this event. With a multitude of products on display, Albert Chandler was aware that grabbing the attention of the majority of attendees would be a daunting task. Then, a blond man named Matthias and a red-haired woman named Lily approached the Rebold technology booth, with Matthias, who sported a mustache, pointing to the sleek black cellular phone, which happened to be the Kishin Rebold Series 1. He inquired with a touch of surprise, "Oh? Is this a cellular phone?" Albert Chandler let out a sigh of relief that someone had finally taken notice and replied, "That's correct." He picked up the cellular phone and brought it closer to Matthias and Lily, saying, "This is the Kishin Rebold Series 1 phone." Matthias nodded, and the word Kishin triggered a sense of familiarity in his mind, which he conveniently brushed aside. As Matthias and Lily examined the phone, they noticed it was notably thinner and more compact compared to other cellular phones on the market. Matthias held the phone, finding it comfortable in his hand and far less bulky. The red logo on the front cover read KRS-One. KRS-One, hey. Matthias nodded thoughtfully as he tested the keypad, surprised by its smoothness. When the screen remained dark, Matthias furrowed his brows and asked Albert Chandler, "Is it not turning on?" Albert Chandler smiled and explained, "Press this button here, and it will turn on." He pointed to the power button located just below the small antenna. Matthias nodded, while Lily stood by with keen interest. After a brief moment of pressing the button, the KRS-One logo appeared on the screen, accompanied by a catchy boot-up tone, and the cellular phone quickly powered on. Subsequently, the phone powered up completely, displaying the message "Insert SIM card." Before transitioning into a menu interface located at the lower left of the screen, with memory options on the lower right. Lily nodded in approval, although she couldn't help but feel that it appeared similar to other phones. However, what captured her and Matthias' attention was its slim design and the appealing sound it emitted upon startup. A small crowd formed behind Matthias and Lily, with onlookers expressing their curiosity about the phones at the Rebold technology booth, particularly the one Matthias was holding. One person remarked, "We didn't come here for nothing, that phone looks quite stylish." "Yeah, it's really slim." More people began to approach the Rebold technology booth, and fortunately, Albert Chandler had already arranged for a few assistants to attend to the inquiries. Albert himself continued to introduce the product to interested visitors, stating, "This is our latest cellular phone, surpassing others on the market in terms of design, features, and functionality." Matthew muttered with a furrowed brow, "Surpasses other cellular phones, hey?" His skepticism was clearly visible. The same sentiment resonated with other individuals who approached Rebold Technologies' booth for electronic products. While they acknowledged the phone's slim and ergonomic design, they remained uncertain about its features or functions. Noticing the skepticism on people's faces, Albert Chandler offered an explanation with a reassuring smile, saying, "To demonstrate, those of you who are currently holding and testing our cellular phones can press the menu button, and you'll be able to explore the phone's features and functions." Matthias and some others holding the KSR-1 phone exchanged glances as they pressed the menu button, and the screen transitioned into a list of options like calls, send messages, and received messages. Calls, send messages, and received messages. These were indeed common functions for a cellular phone in 1990, leading the people to regard Albert Chandler with puzzled expressions. Upon witnessing this, Albert Chandler maintained a patient smile and advised, "Simply keep pressing the down button, and you'll be able to scroll through the menu options." In response to Albert Chandler's guidance, Matthias and the others followed suit, continuously pressing the down button. Indeed, more options emerged, including contact, calendar, and the intriguing games. Noticing that those trying the KRS-One phone were following his instructions, Albert Chandler enthusiastically shared, "Our phone includes a calendar and, most importantly, games." The revelation that the phone had games astonished the people testing it and those nearby. They were taken aback by this unexpected feature. Matthew, still in disbelief, was the first to inquire as he gazed at Albert Chandler, "This phone can play games?" Others also turned their attention to Albert Chandler, seeking confirmation. Albert Chandler confidently nodded and affirmed, "Absolutely. If you'd like to explore further, select the Games option, and you can pick from the list of games pre-installed on our phone." Matthew, genuinely astonished, was one of those testing the KSR-One phone. However, Lily, standing next to Matthew, quickly took the KSR-One phone from him. Seeing Matthew's confusion, Lily reassured him, saying, "Darling, let me give it a try." She then chose the Games option, following the lead of others who were exploring the KSR-One phone. While Matthew watched, feeling somewhat helpless, Lily proceeded to select the Snake game from the list. The screen displayed options such as New Game, Level, and Game Type, with Select in the bottom left corner and Back in the bottom right. Lily adeptly selected New Game, showcasing her video game experience. The game began with a small snake on the screen enclosed within a box border, and there was a dot inside the same box border. Observing the gameplay, Matthew exclaimed, "Darling, maybe you'll eat that dot, similar to the video game Pac-Man." Lily nodded, replying, "Of course, I know that." The others were also amused by playing on the KSR-One phone. While it couldn't compare to the console video games of the present, the experience of playing on a phone was still novel and enjoyable. Before long, a commotion erupted at the Rebold Technology booth, drawing the attention of various media outlets. Chapter 169, KRS-One phone taking the PC Expo by surprise. The media outlets observed a crowd forming around Rebold Technologies. CNN, BBC, and CBC rushed to Rebold Technologies' booth space to find out what was happening. As they did so, many people were engaged in discussions, and a man commented to his friend, "While it may not compare to 16-bit video games, playing the game Snake is still quite entertaining." His friend responded with excitement, saying, "True, I didn't expect to witness the first phone capable of playing games." When some reporters from different media outlets overheard these discussions mentioning games and phone, they sensed an opportunity. Any topic related to video games was bound to attract attention at that moment. A CNN reporter, accompanied by a cameraman, approached a person in the crowd and asked, "Hello, sir. Can you tell us what's happening at this booth?" The person interviewed by the CNN reporter appeared surprised and replied, "Well, Rebold Technology has unveiled their latest phone, which is said to surpass all others in the cellular phone industry market." He pointed to Albert Chandler at the booth, who was currently explaining their latest phone. The CNN reporter couldn't hide his surprise upon hearing the claim, thinking, their latest phone surpasses all the phones on the market. Curiosity piqued, and several reporters from various media outlets approached Albert Chandler at the booth. As Albert Chandler, who was elaborating on the details of their latest phone KRS-One, noticed the media outlets approaching, he felt a surge of excitement that a few media outlets were showing interest. Albert Chandler readied himself, adjusting his attire and hair, as the various media outlets closed in. A BBC reporter approached Albert Chandler and inquired, "I've heard that the latest phone products here are said to outperform all other cellular phones in the industry. Is that true?" Other media outlets directed their cameras toward Albert Chandler, who prominently displayed his CEO title on a plate tag on his suit's chest area. Upon hearing these words, Albert Chandler held his head high, exuding confidence, and with a chuckle, he stated, "I'm the one who made that claim. Our cellular phone is indeed more advanced than the current phones in the industry." Upon hearing Albert Chandler's statements, the various media outlets were both astonished and skeptical. Nevertheless, they recognized that Albert Chandler's claims were bound to be controversial, making it an excellent opportunity to garner attention. The crowd nearby, who hadn't had the chance to try the KRS-One, held doubts about Albert Chandler's words. In contrast, those who had the opportunity to see and experience the KRS-One, whether they were focused on trying it themselves or observing others using the KRS-One and its features, had no doubts about Albert Chandler's claims. A CNN reporter, while gazing at the Revolt Technology logo, inquired, "We've also heard reports that your latest Revolt phones can run games. Is that true?" Despite finding it somewhat absurd for today's cell phones to handle video games, he decided to ask the question. The various media outlets directed their microphones toward Albert Chandler, who confidently affirmed, "Indeed, our latest phones can run games," nodding with certainty. The various media outlets were taken aback by Albert Chandler's assertion. Then, one of the reporters from CBC News inquired, "Can we have a look at this so-called phone that claims to surpass the current offerings in the cellular phone industry and is also capable of running games?" People passing by the Revolt Technology booth were drawn in by the growing media attention, and some who had been there before the media arrival but couldn't witness the KRS-One due to the limited demos were also curious. They all turned their attention to Albert Chandler, expecting a glimpse of the latest phone products. Albert Chandler felt a surge of excitement as he noticed the increasing interest. With an enthusiastic smile, he promptly presented the KRS-One, his company's latest phone. He introduced it by saying, "This is our latest phone, featuring the usual functions of a cellular phone, such as sending and receiving messages, making phone calls, and GSM support." Although many nodded in acknowledgement, they remained unimpressed. Albert Chandler continued with a smile, "But our phone offers additional features that other commercial cellular phones don't have." He paused for suspense, speaking through a small microphone taped beside his cheek. "Our latest phone has a calendar feature, allowing you to set the current date and time on your phone, and you can check the time from it." Another pause followed, but the audience still seemed unimpressed. In response, Albert Chandler added with a grin, "Our phone is also equipped with games." Since people were already aware of this claim, they didn't react much until they could witness the phone actually running games. Consequently, Albert Chandler displayed his phone on a pure white, small wall prepared by the Revolt Technology staff, while the company's cameraman captured the phone screen. With the pure white wall conveniently nearby, the crowd could witness the projected image on it. Albert Chandler, taking advantage of this setup, navigated his phone's menu, selected the games option, and, with a few taps, launched a snake game. Soon, the projected image displayed the snake game, leaving the watching crowd in awe. "It really does have a game in the phone!" exclaimed a person from the crowd. "Wow!" Gasps of surprise filled the air. While others in the crowd inquired, "How much for that phone?" Meanwhile, the various media outlets were genuinely taken aback by the phone's game feature and bombarded Albert Chandler with questions. One reporter asked, "What's the model of that phone?" It was labeled as KRS, which seems to be an abbreviation. What does KRS stand for? Curiosity also arose among the onlookers. Albert Chandler smiled as he responded, "Our latest product is named the Ctto Revolt Series 1. Upon hearing Albert Chandler's words, the people and the various media outlets were astonished, and a CNN reporter exclaimed, "Ctto." Albert Chandler smiled, fully expecting some surprised reactions when he mentioned Ctto. He explained, "That's correct. As you might already be aware, Ctto is a company thriving in video games, franchises, toys, and various other industries. Our company, Revolt Technology, has partnered with Ctto to research a new phone." This revelation genuinely surprised many people and the various media outlets. Some reporters from different media outlets were even shocked, and people near other booth spaces close to Revolt Technology's area were drawn to the excitement. Soon, attendees of the PC Expo began to hear about the KRS or Ctto Revolt Series 1 phone. Even well-known companies such as IBM, Apple, and Microsoft learned about this phone that was said to surpass the current commercial phones on display at the PC Expo. However, IBM, currently working on the Simon personal communicator to match with cellular phones, seemed unfazed by the KRS phone, as they believed their innovative product would revolutionize the industry. Chapter 170, KRS-One phone release. In the USA, several media outlets featured the latest news from the PC Expo, including the exciting announcement of Kishin and Rebold Technology partnering to develop their own cellular phone. This phone was touted as surpassing all others in the market and capable of running games, which quickly caught the attention of Americans. People were genuinely surprised that Kishin, a company known for its expertise in a different industry, was venturing into the world of cellular phones. Some viewed this move as somewhat reckless, considering the financial risks involved in exploring new industries. Not only did various companies like Tora, Suzuki, Samstar, and others in the phone industry hear the news, but some of their employees were even able to catch a glimpse of the KRS-One phone at Rebold Technology's booth. They reported their findings to their superiors, leading to increased caution about this upcoming competitor in the cellular phone industry. While those who fully understood the capabilities of KRS-One were excited about buying it when it was released, many people remained unaware of its charms. Some video game players were curious about the Kishin Rebold Series 1 phone, but their interest in cellular phones was limited since they primarily used them for calling, texting, and receiving messages. Nevertheless, there was still significant curiosity and interest in a phone that could run games, especially considering it was developed by Kishin. This meant that the games on the KRS-One phone were also expected to be of high quality and worthy of attention. People were interested in the KRS-One due to Kishin's reputation for producing high-quality video games. However, aside from that, if the price of the KRS-One proved to be too expensive, they wouldn't consider buying it. Time passed, and in early July 1992, the long-awaited KRS-One was finally released. Its advertisement aired on Cartoon Network, featuring a man sitting in a public chair when the KRS phone's distinctive ringtone caught the viewer's attention. Soon after, the KRS-One phone became available in retail stores like Target, Kmart, and Kishin's physical outlets. People who had shown interest quickly flocked to purchase the KRS-One because it was quite affordable compared to other options. Tora's latest phones were expensive, priced at a minimum of $499, and the same could be said for Suzuki, which had two latest phone models, one at $499 and another at $599. On the other hand, Japanese companies like Motorola offered phones starting at $399, with some models even priced at $299, while Mitsubishi's phones were available at $299, and a few of their models were as low as $199. Regarding the KRS, a phone developed by Kishin and Rebold Technology, it was priced at $400. While this cost was relatively affordable compared to Tora, Suzuki, and other brands, it was still considered somewhat expensive. However, what set the KRS apart were its impressive specifications. It boasted a 650 mAh battery, surpassing other phone brands, and its signal capabilities also exceeded the competition. Furthermore, the KRS-One offered a range of features such as SMS text messaging, a phone book, call history, an alarm clock, and games that attracted many potential buyers. What truly caught people's attention, however, was its captivating ringtone. In a groundbreaking move for the cellular phone industry, the KRS-One introduced a ringtone for incoming calls. Initially, other phone brands had relied on simple beeping or other generic sounds. The distinctive KRS-One ringtone made a significant impact, drawing many people to Kishin's physical stores or their sections in malls to purchase their latest and first phone developed in partnership with Rebold Technology. Surprisingly, the details of this unique ringtone were not revealed at the PC Expo, leaving those who had attended the event and stumbled upon the KRS-One equally astonished. In a Kishin physical store, some customers discussed their excitement, with one individual saying to their friend, "KRS-One has games, I'm really excited to buy it," reflecting the appeal of the phone to video game enthusiasts. His friend responded with an astonished expression, "You wanted to buy the KRS-One just for that reason? To play games?" He looked at the man wearing a Pokemon cap in disbelief. The man with the Pokemon cap simply replied, "Not just for games. I also wanted to buy it because I liked its ringtone as shown in the commercial." His friend, sporting a Legend of Zelda t-shirt, chuckled wryly and asked, "You were willing to spend $400 for those reasons?" The man in the Pokemon cap shifted the conversation, asking his friend, "What about you? Why do you want to buy a KRS-One?" His friend glanced around the store, observing the people busy browsing Kishin's video games and products. The man in the Pokemon cap noticed his friend's cautious demeanor and inquired, "What's going on? Why do you seem so concerned?" His friend, upon hearing the man's question, replied in a hushed voice, "It's not a big deal, brother." He hesitated a bit and admitted, "The reason I'm getting the KRS-One is to show it off and be able to text with my crush." The man with the Pokemon cap, upon hearing his friend's confession, chuckled and said, "Ah, classic move. There are countless cases where people buy a phone just to impress their crush and have the means to text or call them." His friend, his face slightly reddening, patted the man's shoulder and said, "Fair enough. Let's go ahead and buy the KRS-One phone," pointing to the section where the KRS-One phones were being sold. During this era, people were indeed purchasing cellular phones to showcase to their friends or impress their crushes. These phones were considered quite pricey, and texting with someone special had become a popular trend, especially among young people exploring their romantic interests. This growing trend made cellular phones more appealing, both to the youth and to professionals who needed them for work. The fact that the KRS-One featured a catchy ringtone alone was enough to make many people, be they youngsters or business professionals, consider switching to this phone. During this era, people had simpler preferences compared to the future, where even a catchy ringtone had the power to shift their perception and drive them to purchase a KRS-One, in addition to the appeal of the phone's gaming features. Within just a few days of its market debut, the KRS-One was already demonstrating the potential to outshine other phone brands in the cellular phone industry market. This success made phone brand companies from around the world start to feel cautious. Chapter 171, Reactions. While the KRS-One was initially launched in the USA, the KRS-One phone was also making its way into the Asian market, notably Japan, where Kishin had a stronger brand presence and a higher number of Kishin retail stores that were prepared to distribute these products in the USA market. However, in the US market alone, the KRS-One was rapidly gaining recognition, and its sales were already significant enough to compete with other phone brands, luring potential customers away from them. Tora, Suzuki, Motorola, Mitsubishi, and other international phone brands began to engage in competitive benchmarking, comparing their phones to the KRS-One. In the process, they learned valuable lessons on how to draw inspiration from the KRS-One's success and started developing phones that incorporated games and, especially, ringtones. While phone brands like Tora, Suzuki, Motorola, Mitsubishi, Samstar, Panasonic, Philips, NEC were displeased with Kishin's involvement in industries beyond video games, they couldn't ignore the innovative strides made by Kishin and Rebold technology through their KRS-One phone model. This substantial leap in technology had a profound impact on the cellular phone industry, ushering in increased competition and innovation. Despite the newfound rivalry, it ultimately contributed to the advancement of cellular phone technology. However, this positive perspective didn't resonate with everyone. Take, for example, the Suzuki brothers, Shiko and Seiki, who were presently at Suzuki Electronics headquarters in the office of CEO Nico Tabata. They were examining the KRS-One phone they had purchased from the USA. Nico Tabata couldn't help but exclaim, "Shinro Suzuki, your younger brother is as unpredictable as ever. as he observed Shiko Suzuki inspecting the KRS-One phone. Shiko and Seiki exchanged glances, sharing their irritation over their younger brother's unexpected actions. That guy. We weren't even done developing our own video game console handheld to compete with the Game Boy, and now he's surprised us with his latest phone product. Seiki vented in frustration. Upon hearing Seiki's remarks, Shiko hastily interjected, "Well, our younger brother can't claim all the credit. It's quite evident that the success of the KRS-One was primarily thanks to Rebold Technology. Kishin's involvement was limited to their partnership with Rebold Technology, resulting in the inclusion of the Kishin name in the brand of the phone." Shiko expressed in a rapid succession of words. Seiki and Nico Tabata nodded in agreement, with Nico Tabata adding, "Indeed, Kishin lacked prior experience in the cellular phone industry. Therefore, Rebold Technology played the pivotal role in shaping the phone's design and features." Shiko and Seiki exchanged approving nods, bolstering their confidence. Shiko confidently remarked, "That's absolutely right. Our younger sibling couldn't possibly have harbored so many innovative ideas. Sooner or later, his rapid progress in the business world will encounter setbacks." Seiki and Nico Tabata shared their agreement, with Seiki stating, "You're absolutely right. Our youngest brother, Shinro, can't expect to have perpetual good luck. Sooner or later, he'll encounter adversity as luck doesn't remain high indefinitely." Nico Tabata nodded, adding with a smile, "Considering how your younger brother is diversifying into various industries instead of solely focusing on video games, it wouldn't be surprising if Shinro Suzuki faces challenges due to his ambitious endeavors." Shiko concurred with a smile, "Indeed, one should avoid biting off more than they can chew. By pursuing the path of a conglomerate company like the Suzuki Group, he's already choosing the challenging route and must be prepared to overcome numerous obstacles." Seiki and Nico Tabata nodded in agreement. Seiki continued with a smile, "Moreover, his company isn't even private. By following the conglomerate path, he might soon confront financial issues." Shiko and Nico Tabata agreed, and Nico Tabata added, "That's a valid point. Unless your younger brother decides to take his companies, such as Kishin and its subsidiaries, public, there's a considerable risk of encountering financial problems due to their private status." Shiko and Seiki nodded in agreement, sharing a chuckle. Shiko remarked, "From what I've observed of our younger brother and his companies lately, it seems he has no intention of taking his companies public on the stock exchange." Seiki and Nico Tabata concurred, and Seiki added, "That's just how stubborn our fourth brother can be." He paused, chuckling, "He even turned down our grandfather's offer to acquire shares in the Suzuki Group." Shiko and Nico Tabata couldn't help but shake their heads in disbelief. The value of Sazuma Suzuki's shares was astronomical, but Shinro Suzuki had casually declined. If they were in Shinro Suzuki's position, they would have accepted without a second thought. After all, while they were experiencing success with Kishin, they viewed it as a relatively small company compared to the allure of the Suzuki Group's shares. As they delved into the discussion of KRS-One phone specifications, Seiki suddenly recollected something and exclaimed, "Come to think of it, our younger brother might be on the verge of a major setback." Shiko and Nico Tabata turned their attention to Seiki, their brows furrowed in confusion. Shiko inquired, "What are you getting at?" Seiki, noting their perplexed expressions, offered a wry smile and said, "Don't you recall Kishin's other ventures?" He paused, allowing them a moment to recollect, but with their confusion deepening, Seiki sighed and continued, "Kishin Pictures film project, the Jurassic Park." Upon hearing Seiki's words, Shiko and Nico Tabata's expressions suddenly brightened. Shiko exclaimed, "Ah, that movie project? I almost completely forgot about that one." He paused, reflecting, "Now that I think about it, it received criticism from film critics even before its release." Seiki and Nico Tabata nodded in agreement. Seiki added, "That's correct. Although the exact release date remains uncertain, there are rumors that it will soon hit cinemas." Shiko and Nico Tabata furrowed their brows, and Ctto inquired, have they already secured a film distributor? Learning that Kishin Pictures' Jurassic Park project was on the verge of a cinema release in the USA implied a partnership with a film distributor. After all, Suzuki had a company branch as a film studio and a film distributor. Seiki shook his head and responded, I'm not sure. I've only heard that Kishin Pictures' Jurassic Park film project is slated for cinema screening. Shiko and Nico Tabata nodded, and Shiko concluded with a smile, if that's the case, our younger brother may encounter a significant setback soon. Nico Tabata nodded in concurrence. Their perspective wasn't unique. In Hollywood, film critics had already expressed strong doubts that Kishin Pictures' Jurassic Park project would undoubtedly fail. These doubts and criticisms were partly fueled by the major players in the industry, known as the Big Six, who consistently stirred the pot with negative commentary about Kishin. Even among everyday film enthusiasts in the USA, the sentiment was similar. Many believed that Kishin should have concentrated solely on video games. Chapter 172, Jurassic Park Marketing. While Kishin's latest products, including SKES, Game Boy, its video games, and accessories, along with the KRS, a partnership with Rebold Technology, were taking the market by storm in Japan, Asia, and the USA, Kishin Pictures, a subsidiary of the company, began marketing its first film, Jurassic Park. This all started in New York's Times Square in 1992. Although the Times Square of 1992 was not as famous as it is in Shin's previous life, it was already a bustling commercial hub with numerous people. Several high-rise buildings in the area featured billboards, and while they couldn't quite match the fame of the Times Square in Shin's previous life, the 1992 Times Square had its fair share of billboards. As people walked through the bustling crowd, some were captivated by what was displayed on these billboards. A few individuals, accompanied by their friends, pointed at a specific billboard in the distance and exclaimed, "Isn't that Kishin?" On these billboards, a Kishin merchandise advertisement was showcased, featuring the Kishin merchandise logo and a dinosaur toy displayed on the screen. The toy was enclosed in a Jurassic Park box, designed uniquely to correspond with Kishin Pictures' inaugural film project. The few people who curiously glanced at the billboards displayed mixed expressions. Some furrowed their brows, and others appeared confused. Although the Jurassic Park film project had garnered some attention and criticism in Hollywood, most people in the United States were still unaware of it. Among the few individuals in Times Square who had seen the Kishin advertisement on the billboards and knew about the Jurassic Park film project of Kishin Pictures, their brows furrowed as they pondered, has Kishin already produced toys for Jurassic Park before its release? For most people who were familiar with Kishin but had no knowledge of their Jurassic Park film project, confusion prevailed. Some of them discussed with their friends, questioning, Jurassic Park? Dinosaur toys? What is Kishin planning to do by selling these things? One person speculated, well, maybe it's a new Pokemon, perhaps. To which another responded, that's one frightening Pokemon. With a third chiming in, yeah, I thought Pokemon were supposed to be cute and beautiful. Some people engaged in discussions with their friends, and a few who were familiar with Jurassic Park, a film project by Kishin Pictures, simply explained to their less informed friends, that dinosaur appears to be related to the movie Kishin Pictures is making, Jurassic Park. A Kishin video game fan exclaimed, Kishin movie? Why haven't I heard of it before? Those who received their friends' explanations about Jurassic Park, the film project by Kishin Pictures, were genuinely surprised. With the Jurassic Park dinosaur toys being advertised in the USA market, many people grew genuinely curious, noticing Kishin's concerted efforts in marketing these Jurassic Park branded dinosaur toys. Numerous individuals visited Kishin's physical stores to purchase the Jurassic Park dinosaur toys, and word about Jurassic Park quickly spread throughout the USA. The Big Six film studios were aware of Kishin's marketing strategy, but they had completely forgotten that they owned a toy company capable of translating their franchises into toys. They didn't anticipate that Kishin would invest a substantial amount of funds to market their upcoming first movie within the toy industry. Considering that Kishin had stocked a significant quantity of Jurassic Park toy units, including action figures, playsets, and vehicles, it was clear they were going all in. However, Kishin had more up their sleeve. Kishin merchandise also had Jurassic Park clothing, even though Kishin Pictures' Jurassic Park film had not yet been screened in cinemas. Kishin had already taken a significant financial risk. Some other companies, speculating that Kishin's Jurassic Park would be a massive failure, estimated that Kishin had spent millions of dollars on this marketing venture. Yet, what they probably didn't anticipate was that Shin, the founder and CEO of Kishin, had personally funded the marketing of Jurassic Park to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. Kishin had proposed collaboration deals with various restaurants for the future adaptation of Jurassic Park-themed foods, and plans were already in the works. However, as only a few people purchased Jurassic Park toys and clothing, Kishin merchandise started to incur losses. But since Shin's initial plan focused on the production of Jurassic Park toys and clothing for marketing purposes, it had already served its intended function if Jurassic Park became known to ordinary Americans. Meanwhile, the financial losses suffered by Kishin due to the production of Jurassic Park toys and clothing brought satisfaction to some individuals, including the Tora Hire UPS and the Suzuki brothers, Shiko and Seiki, as well as their uncle, the current vice president of the Suzuki Group. These individuals believed that Kishin's actions were extremely foolish and served no purpose other than to hemorrhage money, a decision that appeared undoubtedly unwise. While they acknowledged that Kishin's marketing strategy was aimed at promoting their first film, they held the belief that Jurassic Park was rather unimpressive. To them, it was essentially a frivolous and absurd movie. In Hollywood, film critics expressed their disapproval of Kishin's marketing efforts for Jurassic Park. They criticized the fact that Kishin had squandered a substantial amount of money on a film that, judging by its storyline, appeared both ludicrous and senseless. There were doubts about whether people would even bother watching it. These critiques extended beyond Kishin financial mismanagement, targeting the film's overall quality. Meanwhile, the Big Six, with a particular focus on Warner Bros. And Universal Studios, eagerly awaited the release of the upcoming film Jurassic Park in cinemas. They had already anticipated the film's potential failure, which is why they didn't obstruct the negotiations between Kishin Pictures and Savoy Pictures for the distribution of Jurassic Park in theaters and on home video. The Big Six didn't hold Savoy Pictures in high regard. While it had some recognition in the film industry, it wasn't part of the elite Big Six, and thus, it wasn't seen as a significant competitor. On the other hand, Kishin Pictures collaborated with Savoy Pictures. Since Kishin Pictures was a subsidiary of a rapidly growing company that might have already surpassed Savoy Pictures in stature, the CEO and executives treated Kishin Pictures as an equal partner in their collaboration, aiming to help distribute Jurassic Park in cinemas and through various media. Savoy Pictures was initially hesitant. Savoy Pictures received a copy of Jurassic Park from Kishin. After watching the film, they were pleasantly surprised and saw its potential. As a result, they agreed to collaborate with Kishin Pictures. Chapter 173, Jurassic Park Trailer. The film name Jurassic Park from Kishin Pictures started gaining recognition in the USA due to Kishin's consistent advertising of Jurassic Park dinosaur toys. However, despite the toys not selling well, Kishin's marketing efforts gradually became more apparent. As a result, the major film studios in Hollywood and film critics were already anticipating the screening of Jurassic Park in cinemas. Some influential figures in Hollywood managed to gather information about the collaboration between Kishin Pictures and Savoy Pictures, indicating that the release of the movie Jurassic Park in the USA was imminent. Kishin had made a significant investment by acquiring a motion capture and CGI company to support their work on Jurassic Park. This costly venture allowed Kishin Pictures, a newcomer to the film industry, to efficiently produce a high-budget film with the assistance of these two companies under Kishin Electronics, focusing on motion capture and CGI. Soon enough, the Hollywood's expectations turned into reality when Ctto Pictures released the trailer and teasers for Jurassic Park on various TV channels. On a CBS channel, after a TV series commercial, viewers at home were taken by surprise as Ctto Pictures' Jurassic Park trailer played out. On the screen, the Jurassic Park trailer unfolded. It commenced with bold white text on a lush green background, all in capital letters, stating, "The following preview has been approved for all audiences," followed by the Motion Picture Association of America. Then, the screen transitioned to black, marking the beginning of the Jurassic Park trailer. The scene began with a soft, melodic musical theme and the prominent display of Ctto Pictures. Subsequently, the view shifted to a helicopter soaring above the sea, as it appeared to be closing in on an island in the distance. A quick transition introduced an elderly man with glasses who seemed to be observing something while softly muttering, "There it is." The setting then transformed into a lush, vibrant forest teeming with greenery, with the vehicle entering through a gate marked Jurassic Park. As the vehicle passed through the gates, which closed behind it, a deep voice belonging to the elderly man resonated, coinciding with a scene where a blonde person extended her hand to pluck a leaf from the lush surroundings. The elderly man's deep voice declared, "Welcome to Jurassic Park." The scene transitioned to a location with several LED screens, where people gathered around a table filled with food, engaged in discussions. Among the individuals seated around the table was the elderly man, whose deep voice resonated, saying, "We've created a living biological attraction so extraordinary that it has captured the imaginations of the entire planet." As his words played out, the scenes showed a few people entering what appeared to be a laboratory labeled Jurassic Park. These scenes shifted to individuals in white coats, seemingly scientists, with a man in formal blue attire closely examining a large egg in front of him. Others stood behind him, and the scene changed to depict the egg seemingly hatching, with the man watching in curiosity. Subsequently, the scenes shifted to the same man in blue formal attire, who appeared to be in shock as he removed his glasses, his gaze fixed on something in the distance. At the same time, a blonde woman remained in the vehicle, rising through its open roof with her mouth agape, seemingly captivated by something in front of her. Then, a deep narrator's voice echoed, proclaiming, "The most astounding discovery of our era." The scenes transitioned to the man in the blue formal attire and the blonde woman walking through the forest. Suddenly, the colossal tail of a dinosaur made its appearance, accompanied by a man's questioning voice, "How did you achieve this?" The narrator's voice returned as the scenes continued to shift, declaring, "It evolves into the ultimate adventure of a lifetime." A man with glasses smiled, and the scenes transitioned to children peering through windows, followed by three individuals walking through a grassy forest. The scenes then changed to reveal a group of people observing a flock of dinosaurs running in the distance. Next, the scenes depicted people gazing at long-necked dinosaurs in the distance, with the gentle sounds of these creatures. A young girl inquired, "Can I touch it?" while looking at the dinosaur before them, and a man replied, "Certainly." The long-necked dinosaur made its sound as it stood before them. The narrator introduced, "Ctto Pictures presents." The scenes continued to shift rapidly, and then, a black man with glasses in front of an LED screen, a cigarette in his mouth, appeared to be observing something as he casually stated, "Hold on to your butts." The scene transitioned to a massive dinosaur walking in front of a car, captured through the car's front window. The thunderous sound of the dinosaur's footsteps reverberated. The narrator's voice, rich and commanding, declared, "Directed by Steven Spielberg." The scenes transitioned to reveal a black man wearing glasses at the forefront, with the elderly man we previously encountered standing behind him. The black man, dressed in a scientist's white coat, urgently stated, "The system is failing all over the place." Next, the scene shifted to a portly man walking through the woods, his voice quivering as he muttered, "Oh, that's nice. Here we go." Accompanied by the narrator's voice declaring, "Adventure," the scenes continued to evolve. Inside a vehicle, with passengers on edge, the blonde woman stared ahead with wide eyes and exclaimed in sheer terror, "Look out!" The man echoed her, urgently shouting, "Down!" In the blink of an eye, the camera zoomed out, revealing the vehicle being pursued by a relentless Tyrannosaurus. The scenes shifted to the black man in a scientist's robe, donning glasses as we've seen before. He was seated and looked at the old man with white hair and glasses. With a tone of concern, he uttered, "I can't get Jurassic Park back online." The narrator's voice returned as the scenes continued to evolve, stating, 65 million years in the making. In the final scene, a woman peered through the glass, and on the other side, a dinosaur's eyes narrowed as it locked gazes with the woman through the glass wall, emitting a menacing growl. The scene transitioned to display the Jurassic Park logo and title on a black background. The narrator's voice returned, introducing Jurassic Park. Following this, a black background with white text displayed the production company credits. A single date emerged, July 20. Viewers were genuinely surprised by the Jurassic Park trailer, yet simultaneously curious and intrigued by the film itself. They had observed a shift in the portrayal of dinosaurs, initially submissive but then menacing toward humans. They weren't entirely certain about the film's storyline and plot, but most viewers expressed a definite intention to check it out. On the other hand, film enthusiasts who admired Steven Spielberg's directorial work were left disappointed upon discovering that Steven Spielberg had directed Ctto Pictures' Jurassic Park. They hadn't expected such an influential and talented director to helm a film that might potentially falter, and Hollywood had low expectations for the film's box office success. Chapter 174, Film Enthusiasts' Argument. Ctto Pictures' film Jurassic Park gained even more recognition as its trailer and teaser were featured on various TV channels. Ctto successfully negotiated with major U.S. TV networks, including CBS Network, to promote Jurassic Park, effectively reaching a wide audience. This modern-world dinosaur movie quickly generated anticipation among viewers. While the major film studios initially anticipated Ctto Pictures' Jurassic Park to fail, they remained cautious as the days passed and the film's unique concept and captivating idea gained popularity. People were eager to learn more about the storyline, as the Jurassic Park trailer alone had already piqued their interest and curiosity. Despite the Big Six film studios hoping for Jurassic Park to fail and relying on harsh criticism from Hollywood film critics, some critics who had seen the trailer and teaser chose to decline offers from Universal Studios and Warner Bros. Instead, they wanted to watch the movie firsthand before providing their honest reviews. In the meantime, sales of Jurassic Park toys and clothing saw a modest increase solely due to the commercials featuring Jurassic Park trailers and teasers on US TV channels. However, Ctto continued to face consistent financial losses as Ctto merchandise persisted in manufacturing Jurassic Park merchandise in their factories. The CEO and executives of Ctto Merchandise grew concerned about these ongoing financial losses and began to question the decisions made by the company's founder and CEO, Shinro Suzuki. Nevertheless, they found themselves without any alternatives because Shinro Suzuki was the sole owner of all Ctto companies, and his decisions were beyond questioning. Ctto had no external investors. While executives at Ctto's subsidiaries may not have been aware that Shinro Suzuki held 100% ownership of all Ctto companies, they still assumed he was the primary shareholder, with some of them potentially having shares in Ctto private companies. Regardless, Shinro Suzuki retained the ultimate authority in making critical decisions. The CEO and executives of Ctto Merchandise did express their concerns to the young founder and CEO, Shinro Suzuki. However, they refrained from pressing too hard to convince him, recognizing that within Ctto, Shinro Suzuki held absolute authority as he was the owner. There were speculations that there might be investors backing Shinro Suzuki to support his company, but these remained unconfirmed. Nonetheless, they found themselves without room for complaints. Meanwhile, in the USA, film enthusiasts were no longer unanimously critical of Jurassic Park, a project by Ctto Pictures. Instead, they had varying opinions after having the opportunity to watch the film's trailers and teasers. Some enthusiasts were quite impressed and even formed discussion groups to talk about the upcoming Jurassic Park film. Julius, a blonde man and the initiator of the group gathering, began the discussion. He said, "I'll kick things off." He paused to gauge the expressions of his film enthusiast friends before continuing, "Honestly, I never expected Jurassic Park to be this interesting. Initially, I thought it would be a complete failure, especially since it was produced by an inexperienced film studio. The fact that the company behind the film studio was primarily focused on video games made it seem like a bit of an insult to the film industry. However, after watching the trailers and teasers for Jurassic Park by Kishin Pictures, a Japanese company, I can't help but think the movie might have potential. Though I'm not sure if it's just good in the trailers and teasers, with the overall movie being bad, or if the scenes we've seen so far are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of exciting moments in Jurassic Park." Julius expressed his thoughts, and his friends, also film enthusiasts, listened attentively and nodded in agreement. Then, one of Julius's friends, also a film enthusiast, shared his perspective, saying, "However, I still anticipate its failure, given that it's produced by a Japanese company with no prior experience in the film industry." Several film enthusiasts nodded in agreement as they voiced their opinions. However, the film enthusiasts with a clear interest in Jurassic Park countered these arguments. One of them pointed out, "But it was made by Steven Spielberg, bro. His directing skills are unquestionable to everyone here." Several film enthusiasts on the taking an interest side of Jurassic Park nodded in agreement. Another chimed in, saying, "That's right. We might have doubts about Kishin Pictures, but we can't doubt Steven Spielberg, dude." On the opposing side, there were film enthusiasts who disliked the Jurassic Park film simply because it was produced by an inexperienced Japanese company in the film industry. They felt that it was acceptable for a Japanese company to enter the film industry, as long as they were not inexperienced. An example they pointed to was Suzuki Pictures Entertainment, which had already made some inroads into Hollywood, even if it couldn't be compared to the Big Six or the top 10 studios. In response to their film enthusiast friends' enthusiasm for Jurassic Park, one of them retorted, "Indeed, Steven Spielberg is very talented, and he directed some great films." He nodded in agreement before adding, "But he has also directed a few that were considered bad and unsuccessful." Another film enthusiast who had a strong aversion to Kishin Pictures added, "That's true. I heard that one of his movies released the previous year fell short of expectations." Several film enthusiasts nodded in agreement with his statement. The film enthusiasts who were interested in Jurassic Park attempted to defend Steven Spielberg by saying, "But he's still an exceptionally talented director, and from the trailers and teasers alone for Jurassic Park." Some of the film enthusiasts nodded in agreement. Then, one of the film enthusiasts who held reservations about Kishin Pictures remarked, "We can agree to that, but Kishin Pictures will ultimately lead and control the production of Jurassic Park, so we are quite skeptical about whether it will be good or not." When the other film enthusiasts heard these words, they couldn't help but concur. Meanwhile, Julius, the blonde man, simply smiled and said, "There's no need to argue." He paused, wearing a smile, and continued, "We'll soon find out if Jurassic Park is good or not because it won't be long before the film is screened in cinemas." Upon hearing Julius's words, all of them nodded in agreement. To truly judge the quality of Jurassic Park, they would have to watch it in the cinema themselves. Additionally, their friend Julius, a film critic working for a certain Hollywood-based film critique company, would be providing his review. Chapter 175, Video Game Enthusiasts' Opinions. While people eagerly awaited the release of the Jurassic Park movie, many began to wonder about the cast of the film, which was relatively unfamiliar to the general public. In fact, only a few of the actors were recognizable. For instance, Samson Neill, one of the main cast members of Jurassic Park, was 42 years old at the time and had already gained some recognition in the industry. However, he couldn't be compared to the superstars of Hollywood. Before Jurassic Park, he had appeared in a few TV series, commercials, and had played supporting roles in some movies. Jurassic Park marked a significant step in his career as he secured a leading role this time. Another relatively well-known figure was Ricardo Attenborough, an older man with white hair who portrayed a scientist. Much like Samson Neill, he was somewhat recognizable, but not excessively famous. The remaining members of the Jurassic Park cast were either moderately known or just beginning their careers in Hollywood. In summary, while Jurassic Park was a high-budget film, it did not feature any truly famous stars. The majority of the cast was either moderately well-known or just starting their careers in Hollywood. This is one of the reasons why many film enthusiasts and even casual moviegoers didn't believe that Jurassic Park would become a major success, although Ctto Pictures might still manage to turn a modest profit from the concept and story idea of the film. A particular group of friends who shared an affinity for Ctto video games gathered together to discuss their plans. One of them, named Alex, enthusiastically announced, "Hey guys, I've got tickets for Jurassic Park, who's in?" Almost every one of his friends eagerly raised their hands, expressing a strong desire to get a Jurassic Park ticket. Truth be told, they weren't particularly interested in watching Jurassic Park, even though it was produced by Ctto's subsidiary, Tokyo Pictures. They just wanted a free ticket. With a smile, Alex glanced at the few friends who hadn't raised their hands for a free ticket and asked, "What about you guys?" The friends who had accepted tickets from Alex turned their attention to their friends who appeared disinterested in the Jurassic Park tickets. One of the friends, wearing a bored expression, remarked, "Hey, can't we just play some video games, bro?" He paused, glanced around, and continued, "We're not really into that Jurassic Park movie. In my opinion, we should dive into my current favorite video game, Earthbound." Those who shared the disinterest in Jurassic Park nodded in agreement. One of them added, "Absolutely. I enjoyed Earthbound Beginnings, it had a unique charm." "Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too," another friend concurred. With that, the conversation shifted from Jurassic Park tickets to discussions about the recently released video games by Ctto for the SKES platform. The friends who had also accepted Jurassic Park tickets from Alex joined in the conversation about video games. Alex found himself at a loss for words before finally saying, "You guys, do you realize that Earthbound Beginnings is one of those video games that didn't get much attention here in the USA? Yet, you all enjoyed such an unpopular game that most gamers didn't like." Some of Alex's friends agreed and nodded in response to his words. However, the majority of the video game enthusiasts disagreed. One of them stated, "Unpopularity doesn't equate to quality. That line of thinking is just plain wrong." Another chimed in, "Exactly. We consider ourselves experts in video games, so we shouldn't discriminate against a game just because it's not well known compared to others." And another friend added, "You're right. Shovel Knight, Celeste, Secret of Mana, and Earthbound are all relatively new games from Ctto. They haven't yet gained popularity in the USA as many people here haven't fully grasped their appeal, unlike in Japan where they've been out for a while. In the USA, these Ctto games were just recently released, so their popularity hasn't had a chance to grow." Most of Alex's friends, who were also video game enthusiasts, nodded in agreement. Some of the other video game enthusiasts began to comprehend the situation and nodded in understanding. Alex, having taken in the conversation, nodded and suggested, "How about we take a break from playing video games for a change? Why don't we watch a movie once in a while? Conveniently, I've already purchased tickets for Jurassic Park." The video game enthusiasts who hadn't received tickets for Jurassic Park exchanged glances, and one of them chuckled, "You're really a die-hard Ctto fan, Alex." Another friend joined in the humor and commented, "While I also have deep respect for Ctto when it comes to video games, movies are a different ball game. I'm not sure how they'll fare in the film industry, so I'll save myself the trouble and pass on their first movie, Jurassic Park." Almost everyone nodded in agreement when they heard those words, but Alex furrowed his brows and made a persuasive pitch to his friends, saying, "Come on, let's give Jurassic Park a try, guys. We might be pleasantly surprised." Seeing that some of his friends still seemed unconvinced, Alex persisted until they reluctantly agreed. One of his friends offered a piece of advice, saying, "All right, Alex, but as a friend, I'd suggest not setting your expectations too high for Jurassic Park to avoid potential disappointment." Before Alex could respond, another friend chimed in, "Yeah, Alex, we all admire Kishin for their video games, but as Rich mentioned earlier, movies are a whole different ballgame." After that, several of Alex's friends shared their opinions and advice while Alex found himself momentarily speechless. All he wanted was to share the tickets he had purchased for his friends, showing his support for Kishin Pictures, a subsidiary of Kishin. It would be a waste if they turned down the tickets. Alex himself didn't have particularly high expectations for the Jurassic Park movie, he was just genuinely curious. Meanwhile, Alex and his friends remained oblivious to the fact that they would become fans of the film once they watched Jurassic Park, which was scheduled to be screened in various cinemas across the USA tomorrow.
Thanks for listening.